Hello, friends, and welcome to the Nugget Climbing Podcast. This is your host, Stephen Dimmitt. Things are back to normal after the reverse interview last week. In case you missed it, the last episode, number 44, was a reverse interview where Ethan Pringle took over and interviewed me to ask about my background and why I started this podcast. I do actually have a handful of things I'd like to share about the reverse interview. My sister Heidi reached out to me to let me know that we did, in fact, swim in the bug-infested swimming pool down in South America. I guess we were braver than I thought. And also that it was only my backpack and a few plane tickets that got stolen. I guess we had a rental car for that part of the trip, and not all of our bags would fit in the trunk, so mine was stashed in the back seat. And the inside of the car was robbed, but they couldn't get into the trunk, so everyone else's bags were safe. Turns out the memory of a 5-year-old is far from bulletproof. I also had a FaceTime call a few days ago with my parents. As I mentioned in the episode, they listened to the podcast, and they told me that my sister Allison used to teach me communication skills at the dinner table. Apparently, I tended to jabber on about Legos or whatever video game I was playing, and she was determined to make me a better listener. So if you're listening to this, Tonde, it appears that my listening skills were neither intrinsic nor cultivated, but rather they were beat into me at a young age by my oldest sister. I also want to say thank you to all the guests who submitted questions for the reverse episode and to all the people who encouraged me to do it. And finally, a massive thank you to Ethan. You asked some really interesting and thoughtful questions. Your interest and your curiosity mean a lot. Okay, today's episode. Today's guest on the podcast is Dru Mack. Dru grew up in Louisville, Kentucky, and spent his formative years in the Red River Gorge, and has now climbed most of the hard routes there, including Southern Smoke, Lucifer, and Pure Imagination, all 514C. For the past 4 years or so, Dru has been living on the road as a professional climber, living in his Honda Pilot, taking down hard routes, doing some coaching here and there, and generally spreading the Dru Mack psyche and his genuine love of rock climbing with the people around him. Dru is a genuinely great guy. We just met in Rifle this season, and I got to observe his process battling the crew, a notoriously hard and bouldery 14C. So we talked about that. We also talked about how Dru approaches limit level projects in general, and some of the tricks he uses to maintain his power and keep his fingers strong while projecting. We also talked about some of the mantras he says to himself while he's climbing, and Dru gave us some training recommendations for a climber who is preparing for an upcoming trip to the Red or to peak for a sport climbing project. The day of the interview, Dru asked me if his friend Nat Gustafson could sit in and join us, and he did. Nat is a really great guy as well, and a 514 climber in his own right, so you'll hear a bit from him in the interview. Nat lived overseas in Spain for 3.5 years, and in that time, he took his climbing from roughly 12D or 13A to 514, and I was excited to dig into that with him. And we talked about some of the cultural differences between Spanish and American climbers and why standards tend to be higher over there. And I asked if there were any tactics or strategies we can take away from the Spaniards and apply at our local crags. Kind of a laid-back, hanging out with the boys sort of vibe with this episode, but plenty of good nuggets throughout, and I hope you find it entertaining. Please enjoy this fun and varied conversation with Dru Mack and Nat Gustafson.
Cause, no one can do it like we do it, like we do it, like we do it. Cause no one can do it like we do it, like we do it, like we do it.
Where's the green room?
The green room. I have a second van.
Oh, no.
It's just painted green on the inside. What did you guys have for dinner?
You want to tell him now?
Well, after a long day of rock climbing, we swung through Wendy's.
Yeah.
Little chicken sandwich, Frosty action.
It was my idea.
It was
I
all
dragged
Dru's idea.
Nat through there.
There was some debate at the cliff as to whether McFlurries or Blizzards were the way to go.
McFlurries.
And McFlurries won, I think.
Pass. No. Blizzards.
Wait.
Frosties.
Blizzards versus Frosties.
I already screwed it up.
It's fine.
Yeah, Frosties.
We need to put you on the game.
Because of the food at Wendy's. That tips the scales, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, a Blizzard versus Frosties hard toss-up. But I think generally the food would be better at Wendy's than DQ.
What's the beta? What was the flavor that you went for?
A chocolate Frosty.
A chocolate Frosty.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I didn't send, so it's just there's a sad Frosty and a send Frosty.
What flavor is the Send Frosty?
They're all chocolate.
They're all chocolate.
They're just all chocolate.
Which one tastes better?
About the same. I send Frosty, probably.
Yeah, we're good. I'm just checking things.
Mint Oreo Blizzard.
Okay.
That's the way. If you're going to DQ, then that's personally.
Have you ever gone to Wendy's to get food and then driven to Dairy Queen just for the Blizzard?
No, but segues. Lee always told me that when he was going to take me to like a really nice steak dinner.
Okay.
And I was like, can we get a steak dinner after I do this hard rock climb or whatever? And then can we go to Wendy's afterwards? And he was like, sure, if that's what you want, man. Like, we can make that happen.
You were just joking that you don't do this every day, but at the cliff. Okay, so this actually goes along with what you said at the cliff earlier today, too. You don't do it every day because you have one health day per week.
Everybody's got their cheat day. I'm
I
trying to
know.
have one good day. I'm just trying to eat real clean for one day a week.
One health day per week.
Yeah,
What do
right?
you-
I'm joking. You know, I
Yeah.
try to take care.
And you've talked about having like a really crappy diet when you were younger, and you've like kind of
Totally.
cleaned it up, right?
Definitely cleaned it up. That doesn't mean that sweet tooth ain't that I can't smash a Frosty like you just saw. I just try to be more like thoughtful of it, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you noticed a difference?
Oh, without a doubt.
In your
I
climbing?
feel better. I climb better. I look better. I got some abs now or something. I don't
something.
know. Yeah, I don't know. I've been doing crunches. Maybe that'll help.
Really?
Not all the time.
Remember that cheat day,
Right.
crunch day.
So you have the training that you do for rock climbing, and then you have the vanity training for beach abs.
Sure.
Yeah.
Little core helps.
So I just listened to an episode of the Normal Cast that you did.
Yeah.
And you guys recorded that right after you had sent Flight of the Conchords.
Totally.
And I was really hoping that we'd get to record this right after you sent the crew.
Well, damn, man.
I know.
Rub it in that I did it. No,
Rude of
yeah.
me.
That would have been neat. That would have been super cool. But
Tell me about the crew.
the crew.
You've been battling.
I've been battling. Yeah, man, I've been here in Rifle for a while. And, I mean, it's been a ball. It's been so much fun. I love the canyon. Did a couple routes that I was really proud of and psyched for, and then kind of just settled my efforts on the crew. It's a lot of fun, old school, classic, Chris Newth or whatever, FA in 96.
Wow.
Yeah, crazy, right? Just like a legendary route. And I've been banging away.
Yeah.
Done all the links, the high points, the low points, fallen with my mouth in the chain.
Yeah.
Not literally, but
Pretty close. to
It's there,
literally.
yeah.
Heartbreaking, dude.
you know, I don't know. It's been fun. It's ups and downs.
You're-
Some days I hate it. Some days I love it. I mean, that's like the way it is.
Yeah. You're at an interesting point in the process, it seems like, where you have a few days left, but it seems like you're really at peace with it, whatever happens. It seems like you've kind of let go.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's the point in time on a project where you tell yourself you've let go because you want to send, but you haven't really. And then there's a point where like you're leaving and you just become okay with whatever result, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I definitely kind of feel there. Like I'm ready to move on. I've been here for a really long time. And
When did you get here?
In July or so.
Yeah.
I went to Estes for a few weeks, but I've been here for a while. Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of like, you know, I'm ready to move on now.
Yeah.
You know, yeah.
I'm really fascinated by you called yourself a project climber,
Sure.
and I'm really interested in your method, and a method I see so often. I think Joe approaches his routes the same way. Ethan kind of hammers routes the same way, but it sounds like you've just been trying this thing day on, day off, not trying anything else. Is that about right?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I think it can be smart to add in other things or side projects or finish the day on other climbs.
Okay.
I do that every once in a while, but I mean, I've kind of been in that zone on a bunch of routes where you just try over and over and over again until you submiss it, you like,
Beat it into submission.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Submiss
it?
I don't know if that's a word.
We can look it up. Well, I'm really interested in that process because you're also a very good rock climber.
Thanks.
You're very well-rounded, or you're becoming much more
Yep.
well-rounded, and you're smart too. Like you do make a point to do other routes. You've got a big base, a big pyramid of other routes that you've done. And it's really interesting to me. Like today, you did your warm-ups, and then your kind of second warm-up was like doing some moves on the hard thing.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It makes sense. Like that's good tactics, and it makes sense that with something that long, with that many hard sections, you need to really spend the time. But for me, I'm fascinated by this because I always feel like if I hammer the same route every day, every climbing day, I'm not recovering in those specific ways that makes that route hard.
Totally.
And for me, I found that like I typically try a really hard thing like 1 or 2 days a week, and then the other days are mixing in
Yep.
maybe other hard climbs for me, other hard projects, or like second tier routes or whatever.
Totally.
Do you feel like your hardest sins have come when you have just focused in on one route, or what are your thoughts on that approach?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've done my hardest things just locked in.
Really?
Grinding.
Interesting.
And you just like get it done. But I mean, I've done other hard routes where you mixing it up and you're trying other things. I don't know. I think it makes a lot of sense to be mixing it up and climbing on other things and not be beating your head against the wall on one thing. And I have I think I do it in trips, so this is my second large trip to Rifle. And my last time here, I did a lot of rock climbs.
Oh, okay.
And so that was something I was really proud to do. And I was really happy to do a lot of things. And then I have another trip where, if I climb one route that whole time, that's fine,
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's how you do your hardest stuff. I understand the point of you do get weaker, I think, by trying one thing. You get stronger on particular moves. The muscle memory gets better. You're just dialed in on the sections. But, I'm having this experience now where I'm like feeling more pumped on the route than I've ever been. And I think that's a cause of only climbing on the same thing. So I think, I don't think there's one way or another. I think every project has to be looked into differently. What's worked, and this is a conversation I had with myself last week, is that just because this worked last time doesn't mean it's going to work this time. Just because I've beat a project in its mission doesn't mean that I can do the same thing with this route. And I've added a couple days in bouldering at the gym in Carbondale. And that, I don't know, everything demands a different level of respect, different process. Every project has a different process.
Yeah.
Very simply.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. And you've also had a successful season already, right? Didn't you do Waka Flocka Flame?
Did the flame.
Flame. When was that?
Maybe a month ago.
Okay.
Maybe 6 weeks ago. I could look, but
okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Was it
6 weeks probably? I think I've been and then since then just crew.
Okay.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Were you trying the crew before that, or was it just Flame 100%?
Kind of here in the summer, and I was just climbing on everything, just having fun. I did some of the classics, Simply Red, Bride of Frankenstein, whatever, Slice of Life, or Piece of Cake.
Bunch of 13Ds. Yeah,
I did a bunch of, I had a lot of fun, and then I was trying Waka, and I was trying the crew. I tried the crew because I was going to Boulder and Estes, and I just wanted to be stronger for my Estes little trip.
Interesting.
Yeah, totally. I wasn't even going to the top of the crew at first.
You're training on the crew for your bouldering trip.
Totally. I was like, man, my pump is good, but like I'm not bouldering well. So like, let's try a bouldery route so that when I go to Estes, that progression's a little easier.
Okay.
And so I just bouldered around on the crew for a bit. After I came back from Estes, I was just, climbing on both of them. And when I did Flame, I, started investing more time on crew.
Okay.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And Waka Flocka Flame and the crew are both 14C. I don't know if we mentioned that, but so that's really
opposite
interesting.
Routes, totally different.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Flame is more enduro and
so pumpy.
Okay.
Yeah. So pumpy.
Gotcha.
And
that one suits you better.
Crew is hard boulders.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And I think Flame is definitely on the light side.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
So that helps.
Suits you better. The soft ones. So that's so interesting. I was going to ask you about that trip to Estes because it sounds like you used that trip as like a break from enduro climbing for training.
Totally.
So you were training on a route for your training trip.
Yep.
To go to Estes.
Totally. I don't know, man. I grew up in the red. My fitness is so good, but not to brag, but stupid. but my power. I mean, like I've gotten better at bouldering for sure over the last few years. But I still get like comments on my Instagram when I'm do a hard boulder or something that is like, like funny or like, oh, it looks like you're bouldering now or something. And I always find that as, funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, my bouldering isn't, I would like to make more progress there.
Yeah, okay.
It doesn't stick as long for me. So
the strength and power stuff?
Correct.
Okay.
It goes away really quickly. So like to where I feel weak.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, I need to keep that up. And before I did flight, I went to Red Rocks and bouldered for a bit.
Flight of the Concords.
Yep, exactly. Because those are close enough to each other. So for me, it's like I need to go on bouldering trips, and I think that I learned that with the crew this time is that more bouldering is definitely always beneficial for my sport climbing.
Okay.
Yep. Personally.
Interesting. I'm really interested in this. So you tend to hammer one route, but it was really interesting to talk to you at the cliff the other day, and you were saying that you not only had that 3-week trip to Estes to switch it up and boulder to Estes, right? To Rocky Mountain. Yeah. But you've also been moonboarding at the gym in Carbondale. Yeah. And mixing in days with that. So that was super interesting because I'm really becoming more interested. Obviously, I'm on the road. I'm living in a van, and I'm like, what do I do? How do I stay strong? I've done a lot more training in the past few years, and I'm pretty excited to have a year or two where I really go deep into performance climbing and just focus on that stuff. But I'm always just curious what people are doing to, especially sport climbers that sport climb most of the year. Like, how are they maintaining their power and stuff? So
yeah, it's difficult.
Yeah.
It's like if you sport climb so much, you definitely, the power goes away. And
you've been kind of on the road for 2 years, more or less?
A couple of years, 4-ish.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
okay.
I mean, I was working in a gym for a little bit, but then I took off from there, and now I've been kind of on the road. Okay. Doing it.
So how do you think about balancing projecting and performance sport climbing with bouldering in the gym or these bouldering trips to keep your power up?
Totally. I mean, it's just, in a lot of ways, it's somewhat periodized. It's somewhat goal oriented. If I'm going on a trip where I know I want to do a bouldery route, then I need to make sure I spend that time bouldering beforehand in a gym or on a bouldering trip. If I have downtime in between trips, then that's just like straight bouldering. I'm just trying to get better at that, but I haven't done I don't know. It's just kind of whatever I'm most psyched for too, wherever kind of like the psych is at. Okay. And then, if I have a longer sport climbing trip, it's definitely adding in bouldering. Okay. Hangboarding here and there is super easy to do. I don't know. I think it's
you live in a Honda Pilot.
I live in a Pilot.
How do you hangboard?
I'll either use a hangboard at the cliff. Okay. Or borrow somebody's hangboard at the cliff. Or at the gym, if I go to do a gym session. Okay. But yeah, it's try to make gains when have downtime or training time, and then try to maintain those gains, or just not let them backslide all the way when I'm performance climbing. Okay. Yeah.
When was that 3-week trip that you took?
2 months ago.
2 months ago?
August.
Okay. Did you have specific boulders that you wanted to do on that trip, or was it just training mindset? How did you think about that?
It was a lot of different things. It was getting out of rifle. Okay. I think was one part of it.
Mental
was just
break.
Switching modes, switching gears, doing something else. It was really healthy. And then just bouldering, big hikes, bouldering. I didn't really have any specifics. I just I didn't care whether I was climbing hard boulders or doing a lot of easier boulders, as long as I was trying hard. I knew I would be getting better, and that would be beneficial for my rifle season, There were some days that it would just seem complicated to get into the park or whatever, and so we'd go moonboard. Okay. And my buddy Jack came out, and it was just a ball to hang out with him and hang out and climb all the time. I did a couple boulders I was happy with, the Kind Traverse, but it's
what's that one?
An 11 Traverse slow ball.
Okay.
Dabby. Okay. But small crimps and powerful moves, some shouldery moves, and just like a classic one that I really wanted to
Sweet.
do.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then what does the balance look like the last 2 months with the Moonboard days?
That's just kind of been like the boulder of the crew is really difficult for me at the bottom. And so it's just kind of like if I know the weather's going to be bad or if I knew I was going to take 2 days off, then I wanted to get into the gym. There's no consistency. Let me answer.
Okay.
Let me just simply answer that.
Uh-huh.
I just kind of like here and there when I feel like it'd be good. Or my buddy Dan Mursky lives in Carbondale and he was going to the gym every once in a while. So it makes it easier to link up with somebody and go.
Okay.
Yeah, see my buddy Nat in there just the other day.
Yeah.
He's sitting with us.
Nice. Nice. Are you just focused on pure power when you're in there? On the Moonboard sesh?
Yeah, just like, I boulder around. It's just fun for me too. I love going to the gym. I love like the simplicity of just like doing boulders and jumping around and swinging and feeling like a little kid, It's like so much fun. But then it's just like picking hard boulders and trying hard for a little while.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll do some supplemental work, I'll pick some things up and put them down and then leave. Pretty much it.
It's lifting weights.
Yes. Something like that.
What have you been doing with that? Like some deadlifting or something?
No, I don't know how to deadlift.
What are you picking up?
Like some free weights, and I just do a shoulder mobility kind of stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. Eyes, Y's, and T's with weights or with rings kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah. Just trying to get my shoulders stronger.
Okay.
That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard you talk about your stretching. Like, I think when you were focused in on Flight of the Conchords, you were like stretching for 3 hours a day or something.
Yeah, maybe not 3, but I was, it's a lot of like, I'll stretch for an hour in the morning and an hour at night.
Wow.
But I mean, that's not every day. That's most days I would say. But then, and that can be like some stretching and then a lot of foam rolling too. So It's not like I'm just like touching my toes for 3 hours.
What are you doing for hours? Do you follow a routine or do you just like...
It's kind of my own thing.
Okay.
Just kind of getting moving. Definitely kind of like working on a side split or front split kind of thing very slowly, or like lunges kind of stuff. I don't know. Sets of like 10 seconds, 3 sets of 10 seconds for these different kind of stretches. Over the head stretches with the arms. The gym stretches that you learned in high school or whatever.
That I haven't done for 12,
totally. And then a lot of
15
floor,
years.
Floor stuff. And then, like I said, a lot of foam rolling.
Okay.
And that's just like, I really enjoy putting headphones in or blasting music and just like kind of doing my thing, like just chilling. Okay. It's kind of like meditating in a way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got you. Have you...
That's like in season. I'm pretty bad at... there can be a bunch of days where I'm not doing that if I'm just kind of whatever.
Okay.
Yeah. It's pretty consistent, but
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm very interested in this because stretching is one of those things that I can't deny would help my climbing.
Yeah.
I'm like, moderately flexible. It's not a major hindrance, but I'm sure it would help me to be more mobile and have better flexibility, especially hips and hamstrings and stuff.
Totally.
Have you noticed an improvement? Have you noticed a difference?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, nothing like drastic, but I think that like I can high step decently well, like I can reach feet out to the side and stuff. And normally it helps with, recovery in a lot of ways, or I have a sore muscle. Then I feel like if I'm doing that consistently, along with eating well and sleeping well, then those things get better. Okay. I've had times where I'm not doing anything. I'm eating like trash. I'm not sleeping well, and I'm not stretching, and I feel like garbage.
Oh, okay.
So
yeah.
I think it's better when I'm doing that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there anything, I guess, in training or in just how you're approaching your project climbing, your performance climbing that you've been excited about or focused on in this last year?
That I've been excited about?
Mm-hmm. What are you focusing on these days, I guess?
Having fun.
Cool.
Yeah, man. I mean, I think that I've been a professional for a few years now or whatever, especially like last year was my first year, like full-time, like pro kind of mode.
Yeah.
And focus on performance and my own stresses of like trying to be better. And I think it's really important to have days where I'm just like laughing and smiling and having a really good time with my friends and not taking some trips or too serious. You know, I went with Pringle to Mallorca and I was recovering from a finger injury and was out of shape. And I just had this moment where I was like, man, if you don't have fun because if you're upset that you're not climbing well for this whole trip, you're going to be upset on the beach in Mallorca. And I just like really kind of like made me get back to the root of like, I want to do this forever. And just because I want to perform really well doesn't mean I can't go to the cliff and climb 5'9" and 5'10" because it's fun, you know, and those are 5-star routes.
Yeah.
So I just need days like that or trips, you know, where it's just like, you know, play some music if nobody's around and be goofy and have fun with it. Not be serious.
That's cool.
I can't be serious all the time. I need to be serious to get shit done, but it's got to be fun. I want to do this forever. I don't want to burn out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. I think there's this interesting irony with hard climbing where so often that sort of mindset leads to even better performance sometimes.
Having fun?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Has it helped you?
Yeah, I think it's all, yeah, definitely. I mean, I think I think it makes the long trips and beating the head a lot easier, you know? It's easier to grind out when you're having fun too, you know? Not that I wasn't having fun, but it's just important to have both, I think. Mm-hmm. What have you found that's most beneficial for your climbing on this? You've been on the road now for a little bit.
I have.
And this first time in the van, full time.
Yeah.
You know, how is that affecting your performance, and what have you found as beneficial?
Yeah, I've been on the road since February, so it's been a strange time.
Yeah.
You know, this has been a really strange year.
Yeah.
What's been interesting to me is that this podcast project, it does compete with climbing, you know, as far as my energy goes and my focus goes. And what's been really interesting is that I think I like it even more than I like climbing, at least as much as I like climbing.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay,
but I like it maybe even more. And obviously, if you listen to this podcast, like I ask questions that are interesting to me because I want to get better. You know, I started this whole thing because I was so curious about what people were actually doing and what was working for people. And it's been weird. I haven't had the drive or like the focus to implement those things that I thought I would have or that I had before kind of embarking on this whole thing. But for once, that's kind of okay too. You know, like I have this other thing I'm excited about and I'm putting energy into this project and kind of prioritizing that. And I guess right now I'm really trying to find like, what are the simple things that can make a big difference for me? So kind of like I said, I've spent a lot of time training in the past. I'm really excited this year to just climb on rock more and to just try to bring more intention to my climbing day each day, you know, like try hard when it's time to try hard and make the tries count. And I just had a long conversation with Ethan Pringle the other night. I was asking him this because he's so observant and he can't help but kind of like critique people's climbing.
Totally.
And he loves talking about it. He loves sharing with people like what he thinks they could benefit from or
and he's
work on.
Great at it.
He's really good. Yeah, he's really perceptive. He's been doing it forever.
Yeah.
And it was really cool. He said, your technique's really sound, your footwork's good. I spent a lot of time at Smith Rock, so I'm sure that has a lot to do with it. And he said, you look strong. He said, I think you could really benefit from focusing on relaxing, especially in this kind of burly style at Rifle. We're in Rifle right now. And breathing.
Yep.
He challenged me to spend a full minute, or he said, a minute would probably be great. 5 minutes would be even better.
He told me 5, so
5,
you're doing well.
Totally. Spend 5 minutes with your shoes on, tied in, chalked up, ready to pull on the route, just breathing.
Yeah.
Just like forceful exhales, really breathing deeply and just filling yourself with oxygen, but also just like,
it's so important.
Yeah, just getting in that mindset, And I find that like I actually do that okay on the stuff that's really hard for me.
Yeah.
But I suck at it at the second tier stuff where it doesn't matter as much to me. And I'm like, oh, I'll do this thing. It's just
get through.
Yeah, it's just a matter of tries. Like if I don't do this try, I'll do it next try. Man, it like really focuses your attention. it brings like a lot more intention to that try when you're breathing that way.
Yeah,
so
totally.
I'm kind of psyched to like just work on breathing for a year, you
Yeah,
know?
totally.
Like what if you just worked on your breathing for a year?
Yeah.
You'd probably get a lot better.
Without a doubt.
At a lot of things
Without a doubt.
that are peripheral to that, right? So anyway.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you it seems like the questions that you ask and you get an answer to because you're interested in them, I'm sure that's got to help your climbing in so many ways, you know?
Yeah.
Even by just
hope
like
so, man.
a byproduct, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. You're just selfishly doing the podcast to become better.
Totally.
Yeah, totally.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
man. Which
yeah,
is like, I mean, I think that's what makes it work, right? Like other people, if I want to know the thing because I want to know how to get better,
Totally.
then there's so many people out there that have those same questions.
Yeah.
But the theme that I keep running into over and over and over again is just climb a lot of different stuff, have variety. I guess I keep using this word, but be intentional with your climbing and treat climbing like a practice. And I think I've done that to some degree, but I think I could go a lot deeper with that, especially in like branching out into lots of new styles. Because I haven't done much of the rifle stuff. I've done almost no cave climbing, like proper steep cave climbing on a rope. Hardly any.
Come out to the hurricane.
I'm really bad at it.
Cool.
It feels super hard.
That's always exciting though, because then you get to get better at something.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of what I'm excited about right now.
Cool.
Who do we have sitting with us?
My buddy Nat.
Hello.
Who's Nat?
I'm Nat's a homie. He lives in Carbondale. I met him in the Red. We both worked at Miguel's. What year was that?
2011? 2012?
Wow. Forever ago.
Yeah.
I was a little kid. I was young, a little squirt.
See, the first day that I met Dru Mack,
no.
we were hiking up. I was hiking up to the Mother Lode with a friend, and we saw you red point your first 514.
Oh, that's the day I did Omaha.
Yeah, you did Omaha.
Oh,
came
sick.
down. You didn't know who I was, but I was with a mutual friend of ours, and you gave me a big hug. You were
I was
little
psyched.
teenage Drew, just psyched to the
out.
moon.
Oh, yeah, dude.
Psyched to the moon. You're 25 now?
Just turned 26.
26, okay. Oh, right. You just had a birthday.
Oh, my God.
Happy birthday.
Thanks.
So you were like 18, 17, 18.
17, 18, probably. Yeah.
It's funny because I met you, re-met you today, Nat, but I remembered like, oh my gosh, yeah, I think I met you that same season.
Yeah, either that season or the season after.
Probably the season after
Yeah.
at the Red. And, today you just put down Quick Tick Egyptian 13B in 2 tries, which is awesome. And I remember watching you on the Force. And it was just like, it was just like a working burn, you had like a decent go, but you definitely didn't send it second go. I was like, damn, that guy's come a long way. That's cool.
Well, thank you. I appreciate
Nat's
that.
a crusher, man. And he's been like climbing everywhere and just like really, really good rock climber.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're dealing with a
It's
shoulder injury
really
right
cool.
now, it sounds like.
Yeah, trying to figure out if I'm going to be getting shoulder surgery this winter or rage through until the surgery is a necessity, but part like torn rotator cuff and labrum.
Dang.
Which has made climbing an interesting challenge, or added a new challenge to climbing.
Yeah. Yeah, that must be an interesting thing. It sounds like you're at this point where you could continue to climb 13Bs, lots of them, really quickly, but it sounds like you can't really climb at your potential right now.
Yep.
Yeah, I imagine that's a struggle. Like
Not fun.
Yeah. Stepping away from climbing completely to be injured or to recover from surgeries, that's not a fun prospect either. So
Yeah, and especially since I can sort of climb.
Right.
I can climb pretty well, but just not to I can't push myself. So
yeah,
going under the knife and looking at months of rehab when I can still use my body to 70% or some amount is a tough challenge, but
Decisions are always easier when they're made for you.
that is true.
Yeah.
That is a good point.
Yeah.
I'm really interested with you, Nat. I'd love to ask you about your time living in Spain.
yeah, sure.
You lived over there for 3 years, is that right?
3.5 years, yeah.
Okay. Teaching English?
Yep.
Cool.
Yep. Lived on the island of Majorca.
Oh, sweet. Okay.
Yeah.
And it sounds like climbing is what brought you there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I just kind of got into climbing in college, and like I think most of us dove in and was just completely enamored and wanted to use it as a way to explore myself and explore the world. And so moved to Spain and spent my days teaching little kids how to speak some English and trying to climb as many tufas as possible.
That's cool.
Not a bad life.
No,
Not a
definitely
bad
not.
life. I want to ask about the differences you have observed between the culture, like the Spanish climbing culture versus the American climbing culture. I've heard that the standards are just higher over there. Is that true, or in your experience?
Yeah, I mean, you still get this same spectrum of climbers. You know, I'd have plenty of friends there that are psyched on climbing 5'8", 5'9", and plenty of friends that are also psyched on climbing 5'15". I'd say, for me, what kind of separates the Spanish culture from the American culture is just the infectious psych that everyone brings to the crag.
Huh.
That's something that really helped me grow. Is I feel like a lot of times in the States we bring our shoes, our harness, and some excuses in our bag, and those are the essentials. In Spain, it just seemed like people, they say they go a muerte. They go to the death, and they get on the rock and they move and fight and try hard. But I think they also do a better job of leaving things there. So a little more. I mean, people are still very motivated to send, and it's frustrating if you don't send. But I think there's a certain amount of detachment from or maybe a little more process oriented and just enjoying the day to day, enjoying time with friends that I found infectious. And I think people like Dru really exhibit here. So yeah, I'd say just the Spanish culture psych is high.
Okay.
Psych is very high.
Interesting.
I've experienced that too when I go there. It's like the whole crag is invested in your effort. Like people will stop to watch what you're doing. And I mean, that happens everywhere, but especially at crags in Catalonia, it's like everyone cares. It's really cool.
It sounds like there's maybe more attention put on the actual effort versus whether someone sends or not. Maybe.
Totally. People are
They just want to see a fight.
Yeah, well, I think there's maybe a bit more communal at times as well. I mean, people are still very focused on their own individual objectives, but yeah, if someone's up on the wall trying hard, people kind of stop having conversations and start to pay attention, and you can feel like as someone is fighting up one of these long resistance routes where Oleana, Fragel, and Majorca, places like that, like, as they get higher and higher, just the energy from the people around also just kind of rises up the wall. Which again, that happens here, but I think it's a little more consistent there.
in like 5'11" to 5'15".
Yeah, exactly.
It's the same. It's
Oh,
the same.
cool.
It's not.
That's so cool.
It's like everyone will stop and cheer for somebody climbing their first 12A or whatever. And it's just like, it's exciting.
And I would say that it's also, it's not necessarily a difference in the people. On some level it is, but also I think just a lot of times the crags there lend themselves to that, where you can have a phenomenal 5'11" that is right next to 7 5'15s.
Wow.
Or, you can get a spread of classic routes on the same wall. And so you're not as siloed off into dirty Chaucy caves to try the one route.
You trying to talk about rifling, by the way, bro?
Yo, I love rifle.
I like these dirty Chaucy caves, bro.
What about tactical things or strategy, things like that? Have you observed a difference in how people approach their climbing in Spain versus here?
Yeah, we were actually talking about this earlier today and warming up on routes, like warming up on projects. And, maybe I don't necessarily agree with this tactic all the time, but Spaniards love to just roll up to the crag, throw their rope down at the base of their project, and just really get after it from pitch one of the day. Wow.
I wonder how much of that has to do with that climbing style, just the long, steep kind of fight style. Where you don't have like a tweaky hold 5 feet off the ground as often as some of the crags in the States.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think a lot of times, especially if it's a tufa line, or many crags in Spain, you're climbing for 20 minutes from ground to the top, and you're going to get really pumped. So I think it is a little easier to warm up on the route incrementally, whereas like pulling off the ground and grabbing some heinous mono, and it's a little harder to just do that without a proper warm up.
Yeah. Interesting. So I know you've been dealing with your shoulder But is there anything that you've tried to bring back with you now that you're living in the States? And I don't know, I guess, is there anything that you try to dip into mentally, trying to remember parts of that culture that aren't as prevalent here? I don't know, any strategy things that you've brought back with you?
Yeah, I try to bring that kind of infectious psych, and that infectious energy that my climbing partners there had. And really, I was fortunate to get to spend a lot of time climbing with the Poe brothers, Iker and Nico Poe.
Yeah.
And Iker's girlfriend as well, actually his wife now, Neus Colomb, who one of the first Mallorquin women to send 8C.
Okay.
So they're just, some very strong and psyched climbers, and just remember moments with them of, them trying incredibly hard on routes that are challenging and committing and sometimes kind of scary, and, taking big falls and just hitting the bottom of the rope and just laughing because they're having such a good time.
Wow.
Not to say that there's not moments of frustration, but just really trying to just remember, like Dru said, we're out here, we're having fun, Rock climbing is where it's a precious gift that we get to do. And so if we are at the crag not enjoying ourselves, we're kind of wasting that gift, I would say. So just really reminding myself to have a good time, regardless of if I'm clipping chains, if I'm dogging, if I'm falling off the same move repeatedly. Still just remember that we're having a good time.
I'm curious what your evolution of your own climbing looked like in those 3 years. Like, what kind of a level were you climbing at going into that time in Spain? And then what was your climbing like when you left?
Let's see. I climbed my first 12D, 13A in Spain.
Okay.
And then...
So you never did the force before you left?
I did not do the force that year. I did that when I came back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, no, that one got away from me that season. Yeah, kind of like 12 plus 13 minus climber arriving there. And then through time in Spain, there's one wall in particular, Fragel in Mallorca, which has, 5-star routes of every grade, really. So I just kind of started working my way through those routes and ended up climbing a couple of 514s, on-sighting some 13Bs.
Dang.
So it was a great, it was a great time. And I think it was in no small part due to the people I was climbing with. And just, I was psyched, they were psyched, we were all psyched. And so it was really easy to just have these big days where we're just throwing ourselves at the wall from sun up till sundown.
What was it like making that change, moving to another country and traveling? And from there, you traveled all over Europe quite a bit. What were kind of some struggles? I'm sure the culture shock and language barriers and things like that. I mean, what kind of things did you experience that way?
Yeah, I would say probably the language barrier was one of the harder ones. Especially, I went to Spain not really speaking any Spanish and kind of learning while I was there, and very lucky to have a lot of very patient friends. But I also did realize that I changed as a person if I couldn't, not being able to fully express yourself in the full spectrum of emotions. I felt like I was at times a little more emotionally blunted in the sense that I only knew how to say, I am sad, I am happy. I couldn't express the subtleties. So that was interesting, just trying to manage that. And mostly in doing that, I was like, all right, I need to learn how to speak this language so I can express myself. Actually, some like Neus, my friend, after about a year, once I started to really have a command of the language, she told me one day, she's like, we always thought that you were so quiet and polite, but then we just realized you couldn't speak, you couldn't say anything. So that was a good moment.
You're still polite, but
that's fascinating. That makes perfect sense. I've just never really stopped to think about that.
Yeah. And what would you what advice would you give to somebody wanting to travel to somewhere they haven't been, or because traveling can be really scary,
Yeah, it can be.
How'd you get over those kind of fears and intimidation of being in a new place?
Can I add a question to that?
Yeah.
What do you wish that you had known going into that trip?
Yeah, totally.
Ooh, those are good questions. All right, I'm gonna start with Dru's part and then work around to what I wish I had known. I think you don't get over the fears in the sense that you step over them and then they're no longer there. That was one thing. And actually, that's my answer to what I wish I had known as well, is like, you take a step, you like do something that is against the fears or going against the fears. And that's awesome, but that doesn't mean that there's not going to be another set of fears or another set of fears. And so really just trying to be mindful, trying to be present, realizing that with most things in life that I think are, at least for me, fulfilling and inspiring, there's going to be a certain amount of fear. And so for, moving to another country or just hitting the road, not really sure where you're going, there's a certain amount of fear there. And accepting that as part of the game, accepting and embracing it, because it's always going to be there. And this happened to me, like, if you spend so much time trying to negate those or, negate them or just pretend they don't exist, you're going to be a little less present, both abroad and in your own home. So I think that was something that I learned there, was just like, oh, a lot of times life can be uncomfortable, and that doesn't necessarily mean that's not a bad thing. It's just part of the game.
Good answer.
That's why I wanted this boy to join me. We just have these long conversations. I mean, he's like, we're never in the same place.
Yeah.
Yet we're like best of friends, and we can have these like really interesting conversations about fear and anxiety and depression and rock climbing and girls and everything. And it's important to have people like Nat in your life.
Yeah.
Appreciate you,
really
Drew.
grateful. Yeah.
What is something that you've learned from Nat recently in the last year or so?
Oh man. What did we talk about when we were driving over here? We were talking about like pushing through uncomforts and trying to do more and balancing your time well, and in this juggling act of how much you're doing and how full your plate is versus how empty your plate is, and finding the space for more and more and more without it eating in too much to the things you want to be really good at as well. That was just like, we talked about that while we were driving here kind of stuff.
I know you've expressed like wanting to give back more in your climbing, and not just be a professional climber who sends hard routes. Is that kind of what you're
in a lot of ways
talking about?
Yeah, totally, especially with this year. I joked that like it feels silly to project one route when the world is burning and crazy and you want to do something and help, and just talking about different ways you can and different ways to, not just direct ways to can, but just like the generalization of giving energy and how good that is, I guess. Yeah. I don't know.
What's something that you've learned from Drew?
That's a good question. Drew and I, our relationship has been really interesting, and we've both grown quite a lot as people through all of this. And I think what I've learned from Drew is seeing Drew really dive into climbing as a professional, as a profession, and in turn having his, like, being a public persona, seeing how he has been able to balance both probably poles in good and bad directions that come with being kind of in the public eye, and just really being true. Like, he has stayed true to himself. Not, I think there's been some moments where you've maybe had to like correct your course a little bit, but ultimately just being true to who you are, which is, I think it's an admirable trait, and it's one that Drew exhibits and has learned to cultivate in himself as he's gone from, this dirty little kid in the Red River, like in the hollers of Kentucky, to, now traveling the world, and just being optimistic and authentically caring of others.
Yeah. We talk a lot about swimming too, not swimming, but like this metaphor of waves and dealing with the ups and downs of everything in life, and being sad and being up and happy and everything, everything in between. And that's always nice to communicate with people who feel like on a similar wavelength, Wavelength swimming, LOL, jokes. No pun intended.
That I want to ask you about your relationship with social media.
Okay.
If you're open to talk about it.
I'm an open book.
We had an interesting conversation at the coffee shop the other day, and I asked you if you would want to do this, and you were reluctant at first.
Totally.
With everything going on in the world, I'm sure that seems like that was the biggest part of that. And it's just really interesting. You were talking about how there's like this massive push to be authentic. And, you know, as far as social media goes, to put yourself out there in a really transparent, vulnerable way. But then we are in this really interesting time where it feels really dangerous to do that. It feels really scary. You know, the thought of like taking a misstep, saying something wrong, saying something insensitive, saying something naive, whatever, all that stuff can really come back at you really in a really brutal and harsh way. And I'd love to hear, I'd love to hear how you're thinking about
well, I mean, I think it's
first
it's a privilege to feel uncomfortable. I think, like, without a doubt, privileged in so many different aspects, that I can be uncomfortable by those things and be quiet or be loud, and I can choose what I want to say when I want to say it, and maybe not everyone does. And I think there's been a big push over the last few years, and I've had these conversations often with friends of, you know, if you're trying to be authentic, how authentic is that? You know, is that
like what's too much?
Yeah, well, I mean, it just feels like if you're trying really hard, then it's not really,
it's
not necessarily real, you know? It's like, if you're trying to be authentic and you're authentic, whatever, every day for every post, then how is that authentic? I know I keep using that word, but
it's like unnatural.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, how much soul bearing are you doing to be authentic? And I don't know. I want to share and I want to tell stories and I want to emote with people in different ways, if that's a word. I think it is. But, you know, I want to share my ups and downs, and I want to do that in a real way without it feeling like I'm doing it for this or that, for attention or for anything. I don't know. I mean, I felt uncomfortable with doing this podcast. I feel it feels weird to talk about things. But I think it's in the same way with the NormaCast, is that I was really excited for that opportunity, because with sending a hard route and Kobe Bryant passing on the same day, I didn't want to write about it. I didn't want to post about it on social media, because I don't feel like that displays the emotion or the context that real storytelling allows. And having a real conversation with somebody feels like the most authentic, you know, the authentic way to communicate with the public. You know, I try to tell a podcast, or talking to podcasts, like I would be talking to a friend, you know, and you've now become a friend, so it's great. But it just feels weirder when it's just talking to talk for people to look at. I don't know. And, you know, with this, I was back and forth, and a bunch of friends encouraged me to do it, to stop thinking about it and just do it. Especially Lee Smith, who's been my mentor and my best friend, somebody that's important in my life, you know, a father figure. And he just encouraged me to stop thinking and go for it. And I think I think too much, you know, I overthink, overanalyze, and I think it makes me somewhat empathetic and being able to communicate decently well, but it can also drive me insane and crazy and feel like I'm spinning and spinning and spinning. And I don't know, I'm just blabbering, but I would like to talk more. I mean, yeah, go ahead.
It's interesting. I just did an interview with Emily Harrington.
Yeah.
And I was preparing for that, and I listened to her on another podcast, and she was talking about this really significant shift that's happened for professional climbers in the last handful of years, where 3 to 5 years ago, the general sentiment from the public was like, we don't want you to talk about politics. We don't want you to talk about things that matter. We just want you to climb and inspire us and just send the gnar and then tell us about it or make videos, and we can be psyched and take our minds off those other things. And now it's swung way the other way, where it seems like if you have any platform whatsoever, you almost have like this. I mean, I think you do have a responsibility in some sense, if you have a platform, to be a little bit more clued in to the greater things going on in the world. But, you know, I think it's easy for the average person to forget that, like, you know, you're just a dude out rock climbing, and, you know, anyone with a platform, any professional climber doesn't necessarily, it's a lot of pressure to put on them to expect them to be able to say like the most insightful thing, you know, every time something important comes up in the world.
Yeah. I mean, you see a lot of people making mistakes. And I'd like to see room for people to make mistakes and grow. You I think that's how you learn and grow as a person. And I've been terrified of and hiding behind privilege and hiding behind hiding in the woods, with all of that. I don't know. I don't know the answer. I do think it's a responsibility. I haven't been great at it. I haven't been great at using my responsibility and being more educated. I think in hindsight, in a lot of ways, I demand a lot more out of myself, and I feel guilty for that in a lot of ways, that I haven't been there in some ways or another. But, I'm trying to be aware of that and try to be better and better and better every day. I don't know, I don't know. I respect LeBron James a lot. He's got his whole more than an athlete program. He's been talking about that for a long time. And I don't know. I think it's not anyone with the position of power or opportunity. I'd love to see that some kind of outreach, some kind of something. I hope I can do that through mentorship.
Yeah,
I feel like that's some way that I can, whether it's advice for rock climbing or advice for sponsorship. I feel like I try at that. But I mean, yeah, we're trying to get better. I don't have any excuses. If somebody's mad at me for doing something wrong or doing something whatever, I can be better in a lot of ways. I think we all can. It's how much are we willing to put into that. And I'd like for myself to put more energy into other things, not just my rock climbing.
Yeah.
But it's also easy to go rock climbing all the time. Yeah. And kind of push that out of mind.
Yeah.
But that's just that. I mean, that's a comfort thing. That's a privilege thing. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you for sharing all that.
Yeah.
Something I want to latch on.
It's scary.
Something.
I don't know.
It is. And it shouldn't be. And I think that, I would want to emphasize one thing that you said, which is I really hope that we can get to a place where we have a little bit more room to screw up, whether you're someone in the public or not. I think we all just need to have room to make mistakes and learn from them.
I think I'm a sensitive person, and I feel really sensitive, and so it's hard to even like constructive criticism can be hard to take, and I think that, I don't know, it's important to sit back and not take it personally too. If somebody is like calling you out, it never feels good, but I'd rather change than, I don't know. But that's really hard, Yeah. I don't know. Yeah.
I want to talk to you more about this mentorship thing.
Yeah.
Tell me about Lee.
I met Lee when I first started rock climbing. Our friend Robbie Wheeler, who mountain biked with my dad. Robbie started taking me to the climbing gym because I just bugged him all the time. Bugged my parents.
How old were you?
12, 11. Robbie and Lee climbed together at Rock Sport near Louisville, Kentucky.
Louisville.
Yeah.
Okay.
And old Rock Sport, which the owner of Rock Sport, Rob Butch, passed away last year, and that was really hard, So like big love to that whole community. Who he built the first climbing gym there, and held on to it forever. But I met Lee through Robbie, and just quickly was like under his wing and with the whole group there, and they started taking me outside. And Lee tells the story. I think he tells it on the Chris Hampton podcast, but his wife at the time made him get a larger text plan because I was a 14-year-old kid blowing his phone up. Just like, I'd have a flapper and I'd send him 4 photos of it throughout the day asking like when it would get better. So it's just, we climbed together all the time, and, he helped me with training and he helped me with life, and we would have these 2-hour drives to the Red where, at the time I needed somebody to talk to. I was getting a lot of help with different things like anxiety and depression, and I went to a facility for a little while for some issues with panic attacks and social anxiety and just the whole works, and just being a kid, you're like lost. You don't know what you're doing, or you're trying to figure out your identity and who you are and what you're trying to do and what you're supposed to do. And you know, it just is a crazy time. I can't imagine, you know, and Lee he was there for me, and we grew together in a lot of ways. And yeah, I mean, he's like a big brother, an uncle, a dad. He's been all roles, you know. I feel very lucky. We've had our ups and downs, like any relationship, I'd say, you know, but like, you know, I've known him for forever, for more of my life than without him. And I mean, I'm really grateful. He's a big fan of yours. He's gonna love this. I mean, and it's cool, man, because he's got two little daughters now, and they're just like my little sisters. You know, I love them to death. I FaceTime them, and you know, they're the best.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, he was all these things, but he really did guide your climbing too. It sounds like from listening to other podcasts, you alluded to it, but you and Lee together did a whole podcast with Chris Hampton on the Power Company.
Yeah.
I'll link to that in the show notes for people if they want to dig into it. But it sounds like he really had a vision for you as a professional climber and really reaching a high level in climbing as well. It wasn't just, you know.
Well, it's cool, man. Like, I always would bug him so hard, like, tell me what to do. Tell me what to do. Tell me what to do. And he'd be like, this is what I'm doing. This is why I'm doing it. And, you know, figure it out kind of thing. He'd help guide me, but he wouldn't tell me what to do. And that was great, you know, because then I learned, you know, why am I doing what I'm doing? Why do I go to the gym, and what am I going to do while I'm there? You know, it's like to think for yourself and to identify your own weaknesses and how you want to get better, which is great. I always wanted to coach. But
you always wanted a coach?
Yeah, I wanted him to like coach me or have a coach, you know? Yeah. But he kind of helped me. He definitely like helped me learn
how to coach yourself. Maybe.
Yeah, how to learn. You know, how to be better on my own.
Yeah.
How to just identify things within my own climbing.
Okay.
Yeah.
What has your relationship with Lee looked like the last few years that you've been on the road?
Oh man, it's difficult. You know, I mean, like communication isn't always.
Because he's a climber too.
Totally.
And you guys both. I remember you saying, I think with Chris Hampton, that like it wasn't a win unless you both accomplished both of your goals.
Yeah, I mean, we're both trying to push each other further.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, at times, I've done this where I'm sucked into my own thing, and Lee's got to be like, yo, you know, what's up? And I mean, but yeah, I mean, he'll text me like what his week looks like, you know, and he'll ask for advice. He'll say, should I rest 2 days or should I double up on training days? And maybe I'm a little bit more tired for Saturday, but I got 2 days in instead of 2 rest days. And, you know, and then we can bounce those ideas off of each other. And I do the exact same with him. You know, it's like, should I go to the gym today or should I take 2 rest days? And he might not even tell me what to do. He'll say, how are you feeling? Do you feel like you need 2 rest days? And then I can come up with my own conclusions as well. So, I mean, we're definitely, I mean, a lot of times sometimes I feel like I know a little bit more of what I'm doing nowadays. So I may not have to bounce everything off of him. Yeah. But then there's some of those moments where you're like, I just want a second opinion. Maybe I'm going stir crazy on this idea of, you know, or what route to try, or, you know, or just, you know, some motivation. Just like, just cheering for each other. We're each other's cheerleaders. How often do you guys
talk these days?
Like every day.
Really?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, in rifle, it's texting.
Yeah.
In rifle, it's a bit different. You know, I mean, I'm more out of the canyon now that I'm in like in a house. So it's you know, most days, every other day, every few days, sometimes. You know, it's consistent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you already talked about your desire to give more back in climbing, and I was asking you earlier today about like your coaching, because I'd heard that you'd done some of that in the past. Sounds like you are more interested in being a mentor to the next generation.
Totally.
That sort of thing. Tell me about this song, Middle Child.
Cool. Yeah, man. This song I talk about a bunch. It's a J. Cole song, and he's talking about, you know, he's in between this generational gap where, you know, he's made it and he is who he is, but he still has his heroes, and then there's these people that look up to him as their heroes and are aspire to be like, and you know, it's like he wants to inspire the younger generation like he was inspired by the generation above him. And I think we all probably get to that point where we're the beginning, middle, and the older child or whatever, you know. But yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm in that mode a little bit, you know. Like I get it. I'm so grateful that, like, you know, it's crazy that I've gone on trips with my heroes, you know, the people that I grew up watching climbing videos of, and I can call them and ask for them for advice. And I've done that since I was a little kid. I just bugged people like Jonathan and Joe and
Jonathan Seegers and Joe Kinder.
Yeah. I mean, I literally, when I was a kid, I bugged them, you know, and I offered to pay them to I had no money, but I was just like, yo, let me pick your brain for an hour, you know?
Yeah.
And I have messages from J-Star that I have saved. I have messages from my heroes and mentors that I've saved in a Google Doc that I can just look back at, and that's climbing, it's sponsorship, it's like all of those things. And whether they remember those or not, I do. And so, you know, if somebody reaches out to me asking for advice, I want to give my energy and my effort to hopefully help them. And I love it, you know? And I've been lucky to work with some people like over longer periods of time. I work with people who just give me a phone call and want to chit chat about beta for a route, you know, or somebody who doesn't know about sponsorship or something and wants to just some advice, you know? So I feel like I'm learning always. I don't know what I'm doing at all, like at all. But when I'm telling somebody advice, I'm like, oh, maybe I do kind of know what I'm doing a little bit, you know?
Yeah.
You're like, oh, and it solidifies and makes it makes me feel a little bit more confident in what I'm doing too, to be there for somebody. And it's great, you know, it helps everyone, you know. I don't want to just get where I'm going and hide away and not help everyone else get to where I'm going too. I want everyone to like get theirs. Yeah.
Hell yeah. That's awesome.
I'm trying. I don't know. It's easy, you know? I mean, I ask companies for extra gear to give away. I mean, like, it's simple. Those are easy things to do, and they make somebody's day, you know? And what goes around comes around, man. People have invested in me for so long.
Right on.
We talked about Wayne Simon helping me out with my trip to rifle. And, you know.
Shout out to Wayno.
Shout out to Wayno. And, you know, as I owe it to the universe. Yeah.
Right on, man. Do you think you will ever be Lee to some kid out there?
I don't know. I mean, that's a great question because Lee invested so much of his time and energy and money into me, like a lot. And I've been there for other kids and been a part of their life. You know, my little buddy Jason Wills, like, he's my little brother. I spent so much time with him. But we didn't have where we lived 5 minutes away from each other where I could go pick up Jason from his house and drive him to the Red every weekend or every day I had off from school or whatever. You know, and maybe when I'm in a place like that, I can give that back to somebody, but I'm still pursuing my own thing too. I have a lot to learn, and the more I learn, the more I can give to somebody else, whether that's mentorship or if I have kids or I don't know. Yeah, maybe for sure. Yeah, maybe for sure. Yeah, maybe no, sure.
Perfect. I want to get to more of your evolution as a climber in the last few years.
Yeah.
Your case is interesting to me because you grew up in the Red and you took that style of climbing very, very far before you branched out really at all. You know, you climbed Southern Smoke before had you climbed really at any other cliffs around the country at that point?
Yeah, definitely. I think I'd even been to Spain once.
Okay.
Before I did Smoke, I climbed in Maple, a lot. But yeah, I hadn't done a ton, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had been a couple places, but not significantly. Yeah. Wow, crazy.
What did that transition feel like when you hit the road and you started climbing at new areas? Were there any glaring weaknesses that this is actually
footwork's awful.
This was a listener question, actually. Were there any glaring weaknesses from all that time at the Red?
Yeah, my footwork.
Yeah. That's a common one.
My
right?
footwork and my power, like we talked about earlier at the beginning, is like the Red is great for fitness, especially like the climbing I did growing up in the Red. I avoided all of the boulder routes, you know. I just I climbed at the mother lode a whole lot. So I think limestone is significantly more technical. The footwork has to be more precise, and my power needed to be better. I could climb all of the sections of routes, but you know, I just couldn't do a move or something. And so yeah, those were massive for me. yeah, I don't know. I was excited more than anything.
Yeah.
Just be in other places and climb other things and experience different places, people.
Have there been any areas or routes that have taught you the most since leaving the Red?
Oh, that's a great question. Fisheye is one that comes to mind.
Okay.
It was
In
my
Oleana?
first trip to Spain at Oleana.
14B.
Yep.
Yeah.
Big 50-meter route, and it was just like my first trip to Europe, you know? I had my first hangover on that trip, you know? I was a pretty, like, guarded kid, you know? Like, grew up in Miguel's and stuff, so I wasn't that guarded, I guess. But, like, you know, I never drank or did anything wild. And,
Yeah.
you know, my buddy Nathan Welton and I just went on this, like, ragtag adventure where climbing wasn't even necessarily, like, we were there to climb, but we were there to hang out and have fun and drink wine and see cool places and go to museums and stuff. And I hurt my shoulder on that trip a bit, so that was a big bummer. I didn't really feel like it was a great climbing trip, but it was a great, like, cultural trip.
Okay.
That I could go to Europe, I could go to Spain and figure it out. And I'm scared a lot. I'm, like, anxious all the time, and you can build up all these anxieties or think about what something might be like, but until you do it, you don't actually know. So that trip was huge for me, and Fisheye was this route that I just kind of banged my head on for the last little bit. And I was there with Jonathan Segrist, staying with him for the last, like, month. And, you know, to see him rage on Pachamama and just be so dedicated. And we both didn't do our routes, and we left. And then we both came back stronger years later. I think him next year and me 2 or 3 years later, and did those routes really quickly. I also got lowered off the end of my rope on Fisheye.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, the routes are long, and knot came through the gree-gree.
The knot came through the green.
Well, we untied the knot. It was this whole semantic thing. Not semantics, because I was told that's the wrong word, but
okay.
whatever. So the routes are so long and my rope was cut a little bit, so my belayer would walk up the slab, and normally at the top of the slab, you'd untie the knot, and that'd get me to the ground or whatever. And the rope would go through the gree-gree, but I'd be on the ground or whatever. And so this time, I mean, it's a complacency thing. The more you do something, the more likely you are to screw it up. And so I think the knot came untied before walking up the slab, and as my belayer was walking up the slab, rope slipped through, and I came crashing to the ground.
Damn.
I was fine. I felt like I got in a little car wreck.
Yeah.
My back was all messed up and my neck hurt.
How far did you fall?
Like 10 feet.
Okay.
My butt.
Yeah.
And some grass.
Yeah.
I just remember lying there, like, moaning. Just straight up moaning. And everyone kind of, like, made sure I was okay, and I was, like, dying laughing. But yeah,
You were?
Everyone else was.
Everyone else
I wasn't laughing, bro. I was trying to catch my breath. I was knocked out. The wind was knocked out of me. But man, I mean, that route was just like, you know, I'm always getting better. You know, it taught me a lot with that, of just like whatever you thought was hard now, like, wait 3 years. You know, you're just like, I think I'm constantly getting better.
You feel that way?
Yeah.
Still?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, I want to.
That's exciting, man.
For sure. Whether it's the mental side or the physical side or finger strength, I mean, you always have something to be better at. Yeah, it's sick.
What do you feel like you need to do to continue getting better at this point? Is there like a style that you've neglected? Are there weaknesses that you're working on right now? Anything come to mind?
Yeah, so like, first of all, I'm moving to St. George this winter.
Yeah.
Which we'll probably talk about more. But I think being out of Kentucky as a home base is going to be healthy for me. I think stylistically, having the proximity to more hard rock climbing is going to be great, and of all different styles, which is why St. George, Vegas area is really, really awesome. You know, when you grow up, I mean, I grew up in Kentucky, and like, you know, it's there's diversity there in the climbing, but not drastically like the difference between VRG and Hurricane.
Yeah.
Or
Wow, that's
you know, like, and the amount of 514s for me to do in all of those areas are tremendous. It's exactly what J Star was saying with his list, you know, it's like to do all of those 13D to 14Bs or whatever. I don't always need to be pushing into the next grade, but I definitely, you know, I've never been a smith, you know, and I'm terrified, which means I really should go.
Cool.
You know? I think I have a lot of room for improvement in just the amount of different climbing that I'm doing. I think my bouldering can be better. And I never really thought it was bad, but I think my mental game can be better.
Okay.
Yeah. Just
Anything
like,
specific as far as that goes?
red point stress.
Okay.
You know, and like dealing with that in a way.
Yeah.
I always felt like it was okay, but I don't know. We just all like, even that breathing stuff that we talked about earlier. It's just like different things with that I can be more in control of and be more thoughtful of.
I've heard you say that you're a very emotional person. Earlier you said you're sensitive.
Yeah, sure.
And you care a lot about these climbs that you want to do. I'm curious about that mental process as far as like red point anxiety or stress goes. Are you trying to channel emotion when you're climbing, or are you trying to focus in and numb that emotion? How do you think about that? Numb it?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
I have mantras that I say in my head.
I've heard you say that.
Yeah, I have mantras. I sing songs. I mean, and Nat probably saw it this morning or today, but there's one line in a Travis Scott song that I kept saying over and over again while I was trying today.
What is the line?
For this life I cannot change.
Okay.
I don't know. It's not necessarily like, I like it a lot, you know, it's from the song Butterfly Effect, but I love this lifestyle and I'm not going to change kind of thing. And so it sits in with me a little bit, but I mean, there's different things.
It's always changing.
Always changing. Always. A big one recently was just stay the course. Stay the course, which is great for my rock climbing, but also just in having a big project. Stay the course, trust the process, you know.
You say that while you're climbing on the
crew?
crew?
I can. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
If you're in a knee bar and you're stressing and you're like trying to chill out, instead of, I think about the climbing ahead of me, but I really just try to be confident in myself. It's easy to be like, I'm pumped, I won't be able to get to the next bolt. There's no way I'm going to get to the top or something. And as soon as you have those thoughts, which I've had before, you just try to change that to positive self-talk. Yeah, I mean, it's for me, it's really important. I don't necessarily feel like the emotional stress of like trying to red point. It's just, I just feel like jittery and anxious. Like I'm, cool, I want to try, that kind of thing.
The butterflies.
Yeah, totally. And you can rush. You know, I find that I'll rush my climbing, or I'll rush a move, or I'll be thinking ahead too much, or like I said, that negative self-talk can kind of creep in sometimes. I just staying positive with something so big.
Okay.
Trying to find little victories too, which I'm so bad at.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Little beta improvements, things like that.
Yeah, or just, you know, if it's a move higher, I felt better in this part, and just being like excited about that rather than like do or do not mentality too sometimes. Yeah, I think that helps.
Gotcha. I want to get to some more listener questions.
Yeah.
And that brings us back to the list.
Yeah.
You just referred to this list that you got from Jonathan Segrist.
Yeah.
And for listeners, you also did a full Power Company podcast episode about the list. And so if people are curious about the list, they can go listen to that. I'll link to that one too. But basically, Jonathan gave you a list of like a dozen or so routes.
Yeah.
13D to 14A, 14B.
Yeah.
And you specifically picked routes that were a variety of styles.
Yeah.
That would challenge you and help you grow as a climber.
Yeah. And just things that weren't in vogue too.
In vogue.
You know? Yeah. I talked about something like Fisheye, which is just like popular. You know? It's like things that people may have overlooked. You know, there's routes from Charleston there that were put up in the 90s that like super respected, but you don't hear people posting about those on social media, and people like know what they are, you know. It's like these routes that are like these like hard-nosed classics that
they're closing down.
Yeah, right. Straight up, like, and they demand a lot of respect.
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, I think those are really proud ones to go do.
Yeah, yeah.
The things that aren't talked about.
Right. And Jonathan, if anyone's listened to him talk ever, he's a huge history buff, and these are all grounded in climbing history too.
Yeah.
So yeah, listeners kept referring to this list. One person wanted an update.
Yeah.
How many of them have you done? Have you completed the list? And I was like, what list are they talking about? So I finally went and listened to the episode and figured it out.
Chris is going to have to pay you for all these plugs, man.
Well, I'm probably just treading on his toes. He's like, damn it, I was going to do the update.
Nah, man. Chris is a homie. I mean, he won't be mad if he's mad about this.
Tell me about the list. How many have you done?
I don't want to. I haven't. I've done. I mean, I think even when I talked with Chris, which was a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
I'm at the same number that I've done then.
Okay.
Which I did all the ones in rifle. And I've tried some other ones since then, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But I haven't done any of the other ones. I think that'll change now that I'll be, I'm not just doing a trip to rifle or doing a trip to Spain or something. Like, I'll be in the area where a lot of those routes are. Or within 6 hours,
Mm-hmm.
So I can, the proximity and accessibility is going to be there now more than ever coming this winter, It's easy when I'm on a trip for a month or two to not really scope out a bunch of different areas, or go try a bunch of different routes. I normally lock into one area and try to get good at that.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's kind of ironic.
Yeah, totally. I don't know. I went to St. George last winter and spent most of my time at the Hurricane.
Right.
I did a day or two at the VRG, but 2 days at the VRG is not enough to get to the second bolt of some to understand it all what you're doing.
Right.
Now I was there on my first day at the VRG.
How do you do?
Well, let's just say first he brought the softest shoes imaginable to the VRG, which does not work with those slabs up there.
Yeah. Bring some stiff shoes to Smith when you go to.
I was campusing, okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. Watching Dru Mack campus the slab at the top of Fall of Man was definitely a sight to be seen.
Just scraping my knees up, using all parts
Have
of my
you ever
body.
used a stiff climbing shoe before?
Sure.
Okay.
I don't know. Yes.
No, I'm serious.
Like what? I mean, what do you mean as stiff? Like I generally climb in the Oracle, the Evolve lace up, and that's a stiffer. It's still downturned, but stiffer shoe. But no, I'm not using.
I guess I think my friend Peter uses those at Smith.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I like those. I like stiffer shoes nowadays.
Okay.
Yeah, especially on limestone. In the red, you can use really soft shoes.
Right.
It doesn't matter as much.
Yeah, that's why I was curious. This is totally random. I hadn't planned to ask this, but do you find that it's helpful to use a stiffer shoe for knee bars for support?
Yeah, I do.
Interesting.
Yeah. I also have really weak legs, so I started doing little toe lunges, like toe lifts.
Okay.
And stuff, and holding them for this season in rifle because my
calf raises?
Yeah, calf raises straight up because my calves were getting tired in knee bars.
Sure.
And so I was getting less recovery in them because my legs were more tired.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think stiffer shoes, just you can press into those feet, especially those smeary feet, and kind of, I don't know, stay in them for longer. Maybe your feet get more tired in a stiffer shoe if they're tight or something, but I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes?
Okay.
Do you feel that? How do you feel about that?
I don't know. That's what I'm asking.
Okay.
I haven't spent that much time here, and I haven't really done any routes here that have technical knee bars.
Yeah.
But I guess I shouldn't say that. I've done quite a bit of knee barring at a crag back in Oregon.
Yeah.
And I typically go for a stiffer La Sportiva shoe.
I won't blow out a pair of shoes in rifle because if they're halfway done or whatever, I could use this shoe in the red until there's it's done. In rifle, if it's getting softer after a while, then I get a fresh pair and it helps significantly. I've noticed a difference that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Back to this list.
Yeah, sure.
Is it still something you keep around? Is it on your radar?
I got it on my Google Docs. I got it on my phone.
Are you going to make a point to focus in on those routes this coming year in St. George?
I think it would make sense.
Okay.
It's funny. That's a non-committing answer.
It's funny, yeah, totally. It's funny to me that you finally go to St. George for the first time, and you're in close proximity to at least 3 of the ones on the list, maybe 4. and you spend the whole time in the hurricane.
Yeah, I know. That was silly. But I think also partners and weather. Like, I couldn't go to the cathedral
Okay.
when I was there because it was too cold.
Sure.
You know, I went there a day
Golden
and I was
is
lucky to
on the
climb on
list.
Golden. Yeah, exactly. But it just wasn't the right season.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then my partners were climbing at Hurt Cave.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just easier, more convenient. I'm sure I could have scrapped up more partners to go to VRG last winter, but, you know, I just hunkered into the cave.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, being there now, I think I won't care as much to just climb in one zone. I want to go to all of the zones more so.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I would like to make more of a point to climb all of those. And now that I've climbed on some of them, they're exceptional. I want to climb them because they're exceptional routes and they're brilliant routes, just as much as because they're on a list that I want to check off.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
Cool.
We should do a video. I want to make a video about the routes. That'd be fun.
Oh, yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
You should. You have to go back and repeat Living in Fear again.
Oh, maybe not, man. Never mind.
Did you get footage of that one?
No way. Yeah, Zulu and Living in Fear and the Living the Dream, which actually,
Yeah.
like, the dream part, Living the Dream is the same exit as Walk a Flock of Flame.
Oh, okay.
So I did get a climb on that bit again
Oh, cool.
in the Living Crux this season, which was really fun.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, J-Star knows how to pick his routes for sure, too.
Yeah, of course he does.
Yeah, I want to make a point of it.
Cool.
I want to do it.
Okay.
I want to do a lot of routes, but I want to do everything.
Yeah.
I expect this route, the crew in particular, has pushed me to the zone of I want to climb. I want to just go climbing more, not
okay.
necessarily have one project.
Okay.
In particular, this route, I don't necessarily feel as motivated to lock into one thing. That'll change. You know,
Yeah, do you swing
a
back
year or
and
two.
forth?
Yeah, totally.
Focus on
Totally.
volume
I mean,
for
if
a
you're
while.
locked into a project for 2 months and then
Yeah.
you do it or you don't do it, the last thing you want to do is pick another project to just climb on one route with.
Right.
So I definitely like go and do a bunch of stuff, and then I'm like, well, this is fun, but I'd like to challenge myself.
Yeah.
I pick a hard project, and then I get tired of that, and I flip to the other side.
Right.
And both are great.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it's really interesting. I actually just posted an Instagram post about this recently because I've noticed that balance often gets lost. Almost all of the best climbers do that, right? They focus in on something really hard, but they also have done a ton of rock climbs.
Yep.
But they don't post Instagram videos about all the 513s that they're sending, right? They
Yep.
like focus on the 514 or the 515 or
Yeah.
whatever. I'm curious, just for context, do you know how many 513s you've done?
No, I don't. I don't-
Ballpark?
What's that?
Ballpark?
100?
Okay.
I don't know. Yeah. That could be, I don't know where that's at.
I would imagine you've done more than 100.
I've almost done 100. You've probably done much more than
Yeah,
100.
sure. I don't know.
Okay.
I kind of started backdating some things on 8A. I
Okay.
have a private account. I don't know. Jonathan and I had a conversation about this because as a professional, maybe I should be more forthcoming with all of my ascents. But I don't feel like I need to talk about everything that I do.
Sure. Yeah.
But yeah, a lot.
Yeah.
A lot. But I have a lack of on-sighting and flashing, which we talked about a bunch today.
Okay.
With Crag.
Yeah.
I think it's something I would like to do a lot more.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like that second try mode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you'll have ample opportunity.
Opportunity.
In St. George.
Yeah.
It's hard to do things first try and rifle. What about a 515?
Yeah, I mean, that's I wrote 515 on my water jug for a long time.
Okay.
Yeah, which I learned from, there's a boxer video that he would write goals on his water jug.
Okay.
Every time you pick up that water to drink more and more and more, you see what you're trying to achieve. I mean, I believe I'm capable of doing that one day. I think I'm still trying to build, we talked about that with John Wesley, who is on he's a good buddy of mine he kind of side sat on one of the Power Company podcasts where we talked about 515.
Oh,
And
does he have to eat a crock?
He's supposed to eat a crock by the end of
Dude.
this year, by January.
Uh-huh.
Sorry that I'm bringing this up again, but
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I have a lot of...
The clock's ticking.
I know, man. I'm sorry, Johnny, is all I'm going to say.
2 more
Better
months.
start marinating it. No, I mean, it's something I want to do. I think I have a lot of room to... I think it's still off of my radar a little bit. Like, I'm not just gung-ho on one 515 and just raging to do that. I want to be a better rock climber before I really bite my teeth into something that hard. I have climbed on Papi Chilo and Joe Mama, both at Oleana, which are common first 515s.
Okay.
I've climbed on both of those just like one day a piece, not enough to know anything or know how hard they even feel, other than the fact that they felt really, really, really difficult.
Okay. Okay.
But like being in St. George, there's a bunch of 14Ds that I have tried and climbed on, and being there gives me the opportunity to go to D before 14D before, really biting into 15A.
How many Cs have you done? 14 Cs.
6 or so, 7.
Okay.
Something like that.
Are you pretty
Take a count.
methodical in your approach to new grades? Do you try to do a certain number of each grade?
No, not necessarily.
Okay.
I mean, I skipped, I think, 13D, I skipped 14B, but then I backfilled significantly.
Okay.
That's just like an accessibility thing. No, I mean, I just, whatever I'm inspired by, I normally want to, like, climb the next grade, like all of us do. Yeah. No methodical reason. If I'm inspired by it and I want to climb on it, or I think it's going to push me in a different way, I probably could have picked easier 14Cs than the crew to try, or more of my style, but it's classic. I knew it would challenge me and it would be difficult for me. So tried that.
Cool.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll get there. Without
Sweet.
a doubt.
Yeah.
I believe in myself for that one.
I believe in you too.
Thanks. That means a lot to hear, actually. I ask Pringle that every once in a while. I just feel like I'll just randomly...
Do you still believe in me? What do you ask him?
Please. It's more mid-conversation, but just kind of like,
You sneak it in.
do you think I can climb 515 one day? He's just like, yes. It's nice to have people in your corner, And they
For
may not
sure.
answer that question just without you asking it, so
Yeah.
it's nice to have that little boost. I believe in myself, though. And I think I know how to get there.
Okay.
Yeah. I do know how to get there.
Okay.
Yeah.
How? What's standing between you and
Going to St. George and diversifying my skills as a rock climber on more types of climbing. I think it's not always just about doing the next grade, but it's about doing grades that you've already done faster as well. So for me, I can climb 14A in sometimes a handful of tries, but 14C can take me a month, 2 months of like very dedicated effort. So being able to do 14C with less time is a big indicator of growth as well. And so that's going to be huge for me, is doing more things faster as well, not just doing 14D and trying 15A. So St. George gives me both of those opportunities. It gives me the opportunity to try to do 14D and invest my time into those, while also trying to do things 13D to 14C faster, because there's a lot of them. And then, eventually I'll go back to Spain.
Okay.
When we can travel, and I would imagine, J-Star was a solid 9A 14D climber when he first started going to Spain. And I would like to kind of be there before I go back in a lot of ways. Yeah.
Okay. Let's talk about moving to St. George then. So, I mean, as of now, you're a professional climber.
Yeah.
But you're going to St. George and you're stopping your road trip for a while, and you're going to start setting again.
Yeah.
What led to that decision, I guess?
Gut, a feeling.
Okay.
I don't know, a lot of I mean, I went to St. George last winter and just had a great time. I was able to go climbing all over the place and all of these different crags that were available, whether I spent a lot of time at them or not a lot of time at them. But just I knew, and then there's a bunch of really good rock climbers there. Joe and Jonathan are both there, and it's fun to climb with them. And I just knew it'd be a great place for me. And then I learned that, this gym was opening contact climbing in the St. George area. And I knew Joe had connections with them and was talking with them. And I route set a few years ago. And it was like a full-time job for me. I was the head route setter. I really invested a lot of time and energy into it. And it had a little effect on I was just tired and I got burnt out of doing it. And so coming into this one, I felt like, what better way to engage with the community than to be like a part of it, like directly a part of it, and to make some money with that. And, not only have some income from working at a climbing gym, that allows me to slow down my pace and like have an apartment and not live on a pilot or be bouncing around all of the time. I just wanted to slow my pace down a bit and be able to kind of be in one place and maybe, have an apartment where I could get a PlayStation or an Xbox and play Call of Duty with my friends sometimes too,
Okay.
Yeah, so the gym allows me to do that. They're really excited and invested in me as a rock climber as well. So just growing relationships, and I'm looking forward to the whole community is going to grow with having a climbing gym and how the climbing is there. More people will visit, I'm sure, and I look forward to being a part of that growth.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I mean, so you've talked about Lee, and you've talked about wanting to be a mentor, and you've talked about all the people that helped you get to where you're at.
Yeah.
And this, I can really tell just hanging out with you for a couple of days that your community is really important to you. And I mean, you have Nat here. You asked me, I showed up at the cliff today and you're like, do you mind if he joins us? And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
I've never done a 3-person podcast before.
Whoa.
Let's do it.
Were you hesitant about that? How'd you feel about changing it up?
I was definitely open to it. I was just like, okay, what would that look like? I just kind of had to think through it.
Yeah.
And then Nat and I talked for a while at the cliff, and I was like, oh, he's awesome. Yeah, let's do this. It'll be
It's
fun.
all right, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was really curious about Spain right away. Like, oh man, what would that be like to live over there? And I was curious how that influenced your climbing. But I wonder, that must be part of it, right? Like, you've been on the road for years, and living on the road can be super lonely. And I'm curious how that's played into this decision to go to St. George. And I've got some more questions. I'd actually love to hear some of your thoughts on finding community, living on the road, and how you find that kind of balance.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm still learning it. I grew up like in a place that's like a cultural, or not cultural, but like it's a hub for rock climbers with the Miguels, And so you just get swallowed up in a community whether you want to or not. And I was everyone's little brother, so I felt like I was just immediately part of the scene. And that feels like it continues with my climbing everywhere. I mean, I try to be vocal at the crag and like say hi to people and ask where they're from and what they're climbing on, and try to cheer for them. And and I have my days where I'm sad or I'm frustrated with a project, and maybe I'm not as a community-minded person, But I think it's important. I mean, I feel grateful for even the, we as rock climbers who travel full-time you can make very strong relationships with people for a month or 2 months where you're both at the same crag. And you may never see that person again, or you may not see them for years and years later. But what I've found that's really cool is that, I'll spend a month at Oleana with somebody, and then 3 years later I'll see them in some dinky little cave, some random place in the Utah hills. And you very quickly are like, oh, I know you. I don't necessarily know your name. You don't necessarily know my name, but we have this common experience in some way, and that's cool, and it's like special. And without trying to interact with that person, you won't have that experience later on either. So I try, and it's gotten harder the more that I do it a lot. And then I'm by myself a lot too.
It's been harder to be on the road?
It's been hard.
What's gotten harder?
Communicating all the time.
Okay.
Not being in your own show.
Okay.
Not being like self-absorbed sometimes.
Yeah.
Or focused on like what your objective is for that day.
Yeah.
I think in the past I was better at that. And maybe nowadays I try to still say hi, but sometimes it's not as exuberant as it always has been. I'm trying to take notes of those things. But yeah, I mean, it's super lonely too. Like, you get to see those people at the crag, but then you kind of mostly go and do your own thing. A lot of my loneliness, though, is self-imposed as well. Like, I need my alone time. Like, I can be incredibly antisocial, and I don't think people necessarily always understand that by how loud and proud and goofy I can be at the crag.
Interesting.
But, like, I love to have fun and enjoy communal aspects, and then I like to go do my own thing, too.
Yeah.
But that can also, it's super weird. Nat and I talk about this a bunch because you can have this, like, the self, I can't think of the right words for it, but, like, you're antisocial but yet lonely, and those are so conflicting feelings, Yeah.
I can relate to that because I host a podcast, but I'm totally an introvert.
Yeah.
And I think that's really confusing to people.
Yeah, totally.
I'm an outgoing introvert.
Same.
End of the day, I kind of need to do my thing and
Yeah.
recharge. And
I mean,
Yeah,
I need to put headphones in and just like check out, for a lot of times. After this, I'll be like blasting music and just need my alone time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think everyone has their limit of social interaction, and you like reach that limit sometimes and you're like, all right, I go hide away for a day or something, Yeah.
I'm going to ask another self-serving question.
Okay. I don't care.
So daylight savings is tomorrow. We're getting into that time of the year where it's just dark all
Yeah.
the time. What do you do to fill that space? When you're on the road, you're stuck in your Honda Pilot. It's dark for 5 hours before it's time to go to bed.
If I got service, YouTube and Netflix,
Okay.
there's Call of Duty on mobile now that I've been raging on for the last year. I'm not productive with my time all the time, man.
You read a book.
Nat gave me an excellent book for my birthday.
What was it?
Exhalation.
Okay.
It's 9 short stories, like sci-fi mode. Oh, it's absolutely brilliant.
Nice.
I texted Nat when I finished it last week. Like,
I'll link
just
to it.
so grateful that he sent it or that he gave it to me, and it just is a very fun, interesting book.
What made you pick that one for him?
I just read that this summer, and
Okay.
I devoured every story and just like cherished every single page. Just the Ted Chiang, who's the author, phenomenal author, and just the questions that he leaves you with throughout these stories, I thought were, they were a lot of the questions that Drew and I end up talking about in our conversations. We're always jumping in.
Existential,
Okay.
non-answer questions, but let's just think about it.
Do you have an example from the book of one of those questions?
Let's see.
Either of you guys.
Do you have any that come to mind quickly?
Well, I think one of the stories is related to time travel and of realizing that even if you can like either go forward or go back, ultimately you can't change what's going to happen, but you can have a better appreciation and understanding for the events in your life. So it's not really like a question that Drew and I were trying to solve there, but just in general trying to be present and appreciative of each moment, both the moment now and also like moments and like looking back at moments in the past and looking forward, just how to live a life in an open way. I don't know. I thought that was a good one.
I'd say the last one is a lot about like the actions you make now can lead you onto a path of making good decisions in the future as well. Right. And,
Yep.
Not necessarily like this bad decision is gonna, it's sci-fi. So it's like, it goes off in these, it explains these interesting theories and conversations and, these interesting ways and this one's like timelines and kind of like Avengers.
Okay.
But, I mean, I found that one super interesting and similar to conversations we have. I don't know, not necessarily about making good decisions. I think we're pretty good about that, but it's just like a very broad book about life and stuff. Yeah. I don't know.
You mentioned that you're not always productive with your downtime. Is it important to you to have time where you're not productive, where you're just kind of vegging out and just recharging? Is that an important recharge for you?
That's a conversation Nat and I have often.
And I'm asking because I really struggle with this, actually. Like, I have especially now that I'm doing this, it is really easy to fill every free moment of the day, especially when I have service, with things that are like somewhat related to productivity for the podcast, And it, sometimes that's just like wasting a bunch of time on Instagram.
Totally.
But I have a hard time. I feel guilty when I truly just sit down and veg out and turn that part of my brain off.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think that I kept telling Nat, like a month ago or something. We had this conversation. I kept saying, I'm lazy, I'm lazy, I'm lazy, I'm lazy. And he was like, well, do you need that time to be lazy? You know, and there's I hadn't really thought about it in that way too.
I feel like I should be more lazy. That's kind of what I'm getting at. Is like, I don't think the productivity thing all the time is a good thing.
No.
Yeah.
And I have this conversation. I have a really good friend, Shelma Jun, who Flash Foxy. I mean, she's brilliant.
Flash Foxy.
Incredible.
Yeah.
And I'll tell her all the time that I wish I was busier, and she'll be like, "Careful what you wish for," you know. So I think there's a balance. There's balance. The balance is any word that helps you get out of some conversation. No, I mean, I think that I could be more productive with my time. I think that the stretching and reading and things that are good for my growth as a climber or professional, or some of those mentorship things, those are good. And I need to make sure that I'm taking care of the things that I need to take care of. Not just that, but also pushing forward in some ways. I think that as a professional climber, you get stuck in. I don't have a textbook that somebody gives me that I have to read or something. I don't have something that has to be normally done by next Friday. I don't have timelines. I create all of those on my own, and that can be difficult because it's easy to procrastinate. It's easy to have a content idea and push it off and off and off. I have to be better about setting some timelines and some goals and some structure for myself, with also allowing myself time to waste. And Aaron Brower is a good friend of mine who owns the Rock House in the Red River Gorge. We talk about this a lot with cell phones and Instagram and stuff, and he thinks that phones and wasting time, you know, phones especially are a tool. They're a brilliant tool, and they're great for entertainment as well. But he likes, and he encourages me to ask myself, do I have the time to be entertained right now? Do I have the time to not really do anything? And if that answer is yes, then mindlessly scroll or watch YouTube for an hour, like whatever. And if you don't have that time to be entertained, then get your shit done. Yeah.
I think also that's an important distinction between, are you doing that to recharge and because it's something that's pleasurable to you, or are you doing that as an escape from dealing with problem X, Y, and Z? And similar sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe that's what it comes down to, huh?
Yeah. That's a great, yeah.
I have another listener question for you.
Woo!
So
Can we give these listeners shout-outs? Do you know who they are?
Yeah. This one's from Jonathan. The questions about the list were from Kyle and Alec.
Thank you all for listening, supporting, and asking questions. It means the world to both of us. Zero doubt.
Awesome.
Yeah.
This one's from Jonathan, and this is asking you as kind of a resident expert of Red River Gorge climbing and that style. He wants advice he's basically asking, like, what would your advice be for someone who's preparing for a trip to go to the Red? Someone who, and maybe I'll fill in a little bit of my own story here. I did one trip coming from Smith Rock, and I'd kind of heard about the Red, and I prepared in a way that I thought was relevant, and I felt like I was so wildly misguided when I got there. I was like, wait, I'm not falling off of big jugs. Like, there's hard moves on these steep things.
Totally.
But yeah, anyway, I'd love to hear your thoughts on how to prepare. And he says he has several months to prepare.
Great. So, I mean, it's a super cop-out, but the best way to train for the Red is by climbing in the Red. I'm not just going to leave it at that. I'll actually answer the question. But, I mean, the Red is... People think it's soft or easy, but you have to understand how that climbing it works there.
It felt
and
so hard to me.
The fitness and being able to rest and recover and actively rest is really, really important. You have to sometimes be able to keep moving and resting while you're still climbing. And that's really difficult. You're not just getting a jug every 3 feet and like being able to recover on it. So it's like maintaining a certain level of pump as well. So being pumped and being able to carry on. And I explain that a lot with in different ways with like a stoplight or whatever. If you get into the red, greens, you're chilling, yellow, you're kind of feeling it. Red, you're like getting redlined, you're getting pumped, you're getting out of there. So it's a lot about maintaining and not going into that red zone, staying in that green as much as you can. You can dip into the yellow, but you don't want to go into the red. To actually answer that on a training way is that
Let's say he has access to like a conventional climbing gym.
Yeah, totally.
Commercial gym.
So, I mean, I think that a lot of people will train for overall endurance. So doing, 4x4s or doing 60 move circuits or spending 5-10 minutes on a wall. And I think those things are great. And I think those are things that are really important, that overall endurance, even up to 10 minutes on a wall, 10 to 15 minutes if you're not that good at that, of being able to just kick it, chilling, easy climbing is great. But what I think is missed quite a bit is that power endurance in between rests. So like you said, like they're not big jugs. A lot of times it's like edges and you're close crimping, which you're getting more pumped because you're close crimping all the time over and over again. So it's in that 20 move range, I think is really important, because if you break down a lot of routes in the red, it's 3 sections of 20 moves. So if you can do it from jug to jug, that's huge. So for me, that looks like doing really hard doubles, which would be doing a boulder, drop off, and immediately back on another hard boulder.
Okay.
And those should be like limit boulders.
Okay.
Like just a step below limit.
Okay.
I mean, maybe not like project level limit, but like they're hard. And then resting, until you're recovered and doing that again. And that's pretty much like that workout is done after that.
Okay.
It's like that high intensity and low volume while mixing in those 10 minutes on the wall, being able to recover on a jug. So that gets you that 15-20 moves in between jugs, and then that longer endurance gets you being able to recover and chill on a full red point.
Okay.
Does that make sense? And not just doing both of those, but doing everything in between as well.
All the other types of endurance that you mentioned before.
So, I mean, I think it's like if you're going on a trip to the red, instead of just training the full endurance, I would train my power. I would train my finger strength for a little bit. Even repeaters can be really, really great for the red, because that can get in that power endurance. Failure in your forearms without being pumped is something that happens a lot.
That was my experience. I kept powering out and melting off of roots before I was even pumped. And I was like, what are people talking about?
And so that is in that 2x2, and even sometimes a 3x3 you start getting pretty pumped in that, especially if you're doing multiple sets of like a boulder. Yeah. But that double can be sick because the intensity is so high. You're failing on that second, fourth lap, but you're not pumped.
Okay.
Your fingers are opening up. You're fighting hard, but you're not necessarily like got that deep aching pump.
Okay. So a 2x2, 2 boulders that are almost at your limit back to back.
Yep.
And then
it could be the same too.
Rest how long?
I would probably start by keeping the intensity high. So I would maybe rest 10 minutes.
Okay.
Like pretty close to full recovery.
Yeah.
For that kind of thing.
And then do it again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then maybe the next time you do that, maybe the following week or a couple days later, you maybe shorten that rest time. And
Okay.
If you can shorten that rest time a little bit more and more, then it can be good too.
Okay.
If you're completing it,
Okay.
But you may not even be completed on your first time. It should be hard.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. Same with 3x3,
Let's break that one down, actually.
Yeah.
So,
Boulder. And then I find that if I chalk up between that third rest, and this is something that Lee helped teach me, and I don't know the science behind this. People could tell you the anaerobic, aerobic capacities and things like that. I don't understand that stuff as much, but I know what works a little bit for me. So doing a boulder, taking 10 seconds, 15 seconds to kind of let that flush a little bit. So you're not getting that full pump, which can be just chalking up, taking a deep breath, and then getting on for that third lap.
Okay.
That is really good for Red River climbing power endurance mode.
Okay.
Yep.
And what intensity relative to your like max red point boulder grade?
It should be, that's pretty close to flash, I think.
Okay.
So if you flash a boulder, it's relatively hard for you. Then with subsequent tries, it should become easier and easier and easier. It wouldn't be, to me, it's not a boulder that I've just flashed once. It's like, I have circuit boulders. I have boulders that I have on lock when I'm in a gym or that I've set even. And they're very simple, non-comp style, very like, train like you're training for the red or the red type, which like mostly flat edges, steeper walls, 30, 40 degrees.
That was going to be my question.
And-
so, yeah, ballpark angles and hold
Yeah,
size that you
and
shoot
sometimes like longer moves in between holds.
for? Okay.
And I would mix that in. Like if you have 3 boulders, I might not just do the same boulder. I might do one boulder that's like small edges, and then the next one would be on a steeper wall, and the next one might be bigger holds but bigger moves, and then the third one might just be, this long wandering like edge problem or something, So mixing it up can help too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. You just mentioned 30, 40 degrees. Do you think that's kind of a good,
Yeah.
in general,
go
a good angle to
Maybe
target?
slightly less. Even 40 is probably a bit steep for
Yeah.
40 is pretty steep.
Yeah.
At that point, you're on pretty big holds, or shorter periods of times.
Yeah, most of the
30-ish.
that I saw wasn't as steep as I had been led to believe that it
No,
was.
it's not. You need to be able to pull on smaller holds.
Yeah. There's a lot of 20 degree,
Yeah.
15 even.
It matters what you're climbing on, you know?
Right.
Yeah. We have a Red River slab is normally like 10 degrees overhanging, You're like,
Yeah.
I'm 20 feet away from the wall when I lowered off. I thought this was a slab route.
Final question about that. How would you, when you're thinking about the session where you're doing the doubles and then you've got a session where you're doing 10 minutes on the wall,
Yeah.
60 move circuits, 4x4s, how would you think about like mixing those things into a week or a month or?
So it's all progressive for me. So I would start with, like I kind of mentioned earlier, I didn't fully explain, but I start with strength. I do power next.
kind of periodized.
Periodized, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So like I've always found that if my fingers are stronger, I'm going to boulder better. If my bouldering is better, then my power endurance sessions are going to be better or harder. So then if my power endurance sessions are harder and better, then my endurance sessions are going to be the same. They're all going to keep going in that progressively less intense, more moves, but still being able to boulder hard moves for me. I need to keep the bouldering in, but I think a lot of people could just ride this wave of strength, power endurance,
like
endurance.
more and more specific.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. And
but you do mix in some strength and power.
Yep, totally. But that's
The whole time.
Yeah, the whole time for me.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so that might look like, I talked to a professional about this, but I think, for me, if I do like a 2x2 1 week, I'll do it maybe 2 sessions of that and then add a bouldering day in or something, 2 bouldering days in. And then the next week I might do a 2x2, and then at the end of that week I might do a 3x3, and then the following week I might do a 3x3 and a 3x3, and then the following one I would do a 3x3 and a 4x4,
Okay.
and then into like a 40 move circuit, into a 60 move circuit. So it's kind of like 1 week would be the same, like 2x2, 2x2, and the next week you add in the next one, and then the next week you 3x3, 3x3. I'm explaining this in a roundabout way, but it's hard to picture without drawing or showing. But each second week, each bye week, I think you would add in the different thing.
Okay.
And then it's good to take breaks. It's good to take a couple of days off there. Kind of towards that 4th week, you're like getting into some intense territory, and then adding in some bouldering. I think right before trips, I tend to go off of the high volume because you're just tired. If you're doing a bunch of 60 move circuits,
Kind of taper.
in 10 minutes on the wall, you taper off, and I keep it low volume, a high intensity. So I might add in some more bouldering then.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Trying to not get hurt normally.
Yeah. Okay.
Before
Okay.
trip.
Cool. Thanks for all that.
Yeah. Sorry if that was complicated.
I think that made sense
Wandering.
to me. If anyone has questions about that, let us know, and maybe we can put it in like a graphic format or something.
Yeah. And or you can
let us know what you
DM
think.
me, email me, and like we talked about earlier, I'm happy to answer questions.
The short version is start with pretty high intensity. That 2x2 is pretty high intensity.
Yeah.
And progressively work towards lower intensity and higher volume,
Yep.
more pump.
Yep.
Cool.
I think that's across the board for a lot of people with like time in the gym too,
Okay.
leading up to a trip. It's not just me doing that, but I do think that helps a lot with the red.
Okay.
Yep.
Nat, you spent a lot of time at the Red. Do you have anything to add to that if you were giving someone advice, going there for their first time?
Well, I think like you, I went there expecting big jugs and roofs, and that's not the case. So I would say come with strong fingers and strong core. My first time there, I learned a lot and then came back with stronger fingers and stronger core and had a lot more success.
Yeah, fingers for sure. Fingers help a lot.
What do you do for your finger strength now, Drew?
Um,
Borrow someone's flashboard at the cliff. I guess we already covered that a little bit.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've done periodized training with Lee and stuff where we throw a bunch of weight on and we do, bigger holds, bigger edges and more weight and really like structured out. But nowadays it's like, if I feel like my crimp strength is low, then at the end of a session or beginning, I might, get on a hangboard and do 3 closed crimp hangs on a small edge. And that just gets my fingers firing, It's just like something simple, like it doesn't have to be fully structured out. For me now, I've done those things before, but just kind of getting them going. If I know that I'm going to have a trip to Wild Iris or something, I'm going to do some 2-finger hangs. I'm going to do some weighted 2-finger hangs with like high intensity, low volume kind of stuff.
Okay.
Just max hang, 10-second hang.
Would you do those like end of the day after climbing or on
Yeah, I mean, when I
was
was trying Waka Flocka Flame, there's the part that I was falling in was this section off of Waka Flocka into the living part, into the dream part, and there's 2 bad crimps, and my fitness felt really good, but I felt like I was just kind of like peeling out of those crimps, and so I just started at the end of the day grabbing the smallest edge on a tension board and just trying like hell on a crimp for 10 seconds, and doing 3 hangs of that. And that tension crimp is like really small too. So
on the flashboard?
Yeah.
Okay.
And just like getting into that like trying territory is helpful, I think, with finger strength. That's not a scientific answer in any form or fashion.
Doesn't have to be.
But like just getting your whatever size edge that is for you that you got to kind of fight for 10 seconds or even 7 seconds is a great just kind of getting your fingers firing. Yeah, they can kind of fall asleep on you a little bit if you're just like climbing on jugs a lot or edges or you're not close crimping every once in a while.
Sure.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So just end the day with a few quick max hangs.
Yeah, and that's random. I mean, that's not every session. It's not every day out. It's random kind of here and there.
When you feel like you need it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Getting real comfy here.
Cool. Pretzeling in the passenger chair. I know you're a huge hip-hop rap fan.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite new album or song that you've been listening to? Or a favorite old one that you've come back to that you're psyched about right now?
I'm in a R&B phase.
Okay.
A bit that I've been in for a year or so. There's an artist named Black that's spelled with a 6. It looks like Six-Lack, but it's pronounced Black. He's from Atlanta. Yeah, I mean, he's brilliant, And it's kind of more chill and melodic and nice beats and stuff like that. He's probably who I play the most. Travis Scott helps me get like real psyched. I've been listening to, like I said, that mantra earlier from that one. Bryson Tiller has a new album out called Anniversary. Bryson Tiller's from Louisville. Yeah, R&B.
All right.
Kind of mode. More slow stuff.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'll link to
a girl named Malia too.
Okay.
She's British. She's just a beautiful singer and songwriter and really nice verses and stuff.
Awesome. Okay, I'll link to all those in the show notes. Do you have a current hype up song? What were you listening to today at the Crag?
What was I listening today? I was listening to Butterfly Effect by Travis Scott.
Butterfly Effect by Travis Scott.
And that's got that like For This Life I Cannot Change line in it that has just kind of been a little bit of a mantra. Yeah, I don't know. I play the same things over and over again quite a bit. A lot of J. Cole.
Yeah.
A lot of everything. Russ has been on the playlist recently.
Okay.
Yeah, Nipsey, Mac Miller. There's a lot.
Sweet. Right on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Hype up song. Meek Mill helps a lot too. Dreams and Nightmares.
Oh.
That's a song.
That's a song.
That's a song. That's a walk-in song. Yeah.
Perfect. Is there something that you wish you had known when you were 20? You just turned 26.
Oh my God.
Where were you at when you were 20?
When I was 20.
Let's do this instead. You've been on the road for about 4 years?
Yeah.
Is there anything you wish you'd known when you first set out on the road as a full-time climber?
a great question. It's still the things learning how to take care of yourself when you're on the road, and take care of your health and take care of your like mental health too. I enjoy every second of it. It's probably a better answer. It's easy to take it for granted, especially when you're like in rifle for 3 months or whatever. It's not until I leave a trip. It's funny, sometimes I make weird noises and Chris calls me out on them, but like when I'm pausing, I did like, and Chris plays it back. Anyway.
I just edit those out so no one ever knows.
Oh, good. Thank you. So, yeah, dude, it's like one of those classic things of like, if you don't stop and look around, you could miss it. Kind of things that I would make sure to tell myself. And I'm decently good about that sometimes, but it's easy to get sucked into a project or something and not necessarily take care of looking around and being present and being... I try to be grateful, but you can kind of just get in the routine and the monotony and not necessarily know how lucky you are. I'm trying to... I think I'm okay at it, but that's something I'd like to always be better at, I guess. Yeah, I would tell myself back then to diversify what I'm doing too. Make sure you have other outlets, outside of climbing. Yeah, other focuses. Not necessarily focuses. I'd like to be set on what I'm doing and try to be successful at that, but give space for other things. You should give space to your friends and time. Not give space to them, but give them time and allow those things to grow a bit, I guess. I don't know. That's a great question. I need to think about that more to have an answer I'm proud of.
I meant to send it to you ahead of time.
That's okay.
I spaced it. Putting you on the spot.
Put me on the spot.
What is something that you've been feeling especially grateful for lately?
What have I been feeling grateful for? friends and a community that's supportive.
Cool.
Yeah, like having that here is so cool to me. People text me today asking how the project went. My friends did. I'm really grateful for them. My family, which I think that's something I would tell myself is to give more time to my family. You grow up with them and take them for granted for sure. But now that I feel like I'm moving away and I'm going to not be in Kentucky as often, I miss them more. I got 3 siblings and my mom and dad, and so I want to spend more time with them. I want to know more about their lives. I want to be included and involved in their lives more than I have been. It's easy to not be on the road, or not fully involved in. That'd be nice. I'm grateful for a lot of those things. I don't know. Yeah, France, rock climbing.
What did you say? What did you text back to your friends that asked you how the project went today?
Shit, no.
How'd it go?
Yeah, I think I told them the details, how I did on the route.
Okay.
I was psyched that I made it through the bottom boulder twice. I got pumped, and maybe that was a byproduct of not climbing, some gym days and some snow days that we just had.
Yeah.
Experience as well.
Yeah, we sure did.
Yeah, we sure did. Driving in the snow. Just kind of like, what's up kind of thing.
Yeah.
How that route went.
I guess I'm really asking, how are you feeling about it? You've got a few more days on it before you take off?
I think we talked about it a little earlier with I'm pretty okay with whatever result. I'd really like to do it, and sometimes you have that last go, best go kind of thing. I think that happens. I think the pressure of leaving can really focus your effort sometimes. I feel like I always have this conversation with myself early in the process, and it's something that Lee instilled in me and asked me, is that would I be okay trying this route for a month and not doing it? And I determined that, a month, 2 months ago. So if I walk away now, cool. And I've hit breaking point a couple times on this thing where I'm I should not be just doing this. I should be going somewhere else. I should take a break. I should leave for 2 weeks and come back like I did with Estes or whatever. And right now I feel, I'm so just happy that I got this time in rifle and got to experience this and try hard and push myself. And if I fail, I fail. And if I do it, I do it. I've had this conversation too with myself. If I give it my best effort, if I try hard and I kind of try to line things up the best way that I know how to, which I can always learn how to do things better. But if I give my best effort, then I can live with the result.
Cool.
Yeah, and I feel pretty confident in that with this one. I've done the right things. Sure, however it shakes out, cool. Yeah.
Awesome. Right on, man. Well, I will be wishing you luck. When's your next day on it? You gonna try tomorrow?
I'll try Monday, Tuesday, I think. Will
Okay.
be last ditch efforts.
Okay. Then you're leaving Wednesday?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you asked that what are you grateful for question with all your interviews?
Yeah.
What are you grateful for?
It's hard to answer because there is so much,
Yeah.
A lot of things. Right now, I'll keep it pretty simple. So like you just alluded to, we had that snowstorm. We had a couple days where I was bivvied at the Walmart parking lot because I was afraid to drive my van in the snow.
Yeah.
And it was like 3 degrees overnight one day. And I'm really psyched to have another few shots at the project. The forecast looks really good.
Yeah.
So, I'm
nice.
psyched to be here. I think it's going to be a little bit of a hustle here at the end because a lot of people have left.
Partners.
Not many partners
You
left
gotta
in the
scrap 'em
canyon.
together.
But
Luckily, you can belay out of your truck bed, or you can belay out of your car in most crags here. So
it's not as big of an ask
no.
in Rifle as
No.
many places.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm grateful for my time here. I'm really grateful for a little bit more really beautiful weather.
Yeah.
And kind of same.
Yeah.
It'd be really nice to do one more hard thing, but
Yeah.
if not, that's okay.
Yeah. Can I say one more thing that I'm grateful for too?
Of course.
You can edit this in. But Black, that artist that I was telling you about, the R&B that I really like,
Yeah.
and draw like some inspiration from. Recently, he wrote, "I'm grateful for a new 24 and the opportunity to be more productive and creative than I was yesterday." And I really, really liked that. Yeah, the opportunity for tomorrow.
Awesome.
It's a good thing to be grateful for, I guess.
Cool.
Which you're grateful for that tomorrow to get a go try your rig, I guess.
That's right.
Whoa. I want that blue point too. Let me get on belay for that. I got you.
You might have to battle Ethan for it, but
I can
you
thumb
can take
wrestle him for sure. How that rock, paper, scissors.
He says you're really good at basketball. It sounds like you can kick his ass at basketball.
Yeah. Did he tell you that story?
He did, yeah.
On the podcast?
No.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I just asked him what I should ask you about, and he's
Yeah.
like, dude, he's like freakishly good at basketball, actually.
Drew can ball.
Thanks.
He schooled all of us at the
I'm
rec
alright.
center.
Oh my God, it was so funny. I felt like a pool shark. That was a lot of fun. We almost bought a basketball in Mallorca when Ethan and I were there, but we ended up just rock climbing a lot. Yeah.
Cool.
Anyway.
Final question. If
Yeah.
you send this thing, what are you going to eat?
Well, I guess since I had a chocolate Frosty today, I need to go find a Blizzard somewhere. Go get a Mentoreo Blizzard. Or I just go get another chocolate Frosty. I'd be totally fine with that.
Send Frosty.
Send Frosties for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, without doubt. I'll probably send Frosty and some donuts. It's all good. Work hard, play hard.
Right. Right on.
Yeah.
Well, this is super fun, man.
Thank you. I
Yeah.
really appreciate it. I was telling you this, but I think you're exceptional at what you do, and you communicate really well, and you do a lot of research, and it's really cool. Like, it's really cool. You're a fun person to talk to, and I really am grateful for this opportunity. I was pretty nervous about it, so I'm really grateful that I said yes, and thank you.
Me too, man. My pleasure, and thanks very much.
Yep.
That's really kind. I appreciate that. Nat, thanks so much, man.
Yeah, thanks for letting me tag along.
Woo,
Yeah.
woo!
Quite a lot of fun.
Yeah,
Nat's
fun to
first
reconnect
podcast.
with you after all these years, and best of luck with your shoulder.
Oh, thank you. I
Yeah,
appreciate that.
Whatever happens with it, I hope it works out. And you're
Nat also
back to
built my
climbing harder.
website. I forgot to mention
Oh.
that. So # plug. Go check out his work on there.
What's your website?
DruMackClimbs.com.
I'll link to it in the show notes.
It's not that active, but it should be better.
Cool.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. We'll see you.
All right. Thanks, guys. Yeah, best of luck on the project. Hey, friends. I hope you enjoyed that one. Just one final fun update before you go. Drew did end up trying the crew the following Monday, as he said in the interview. He gave it a couple great tries, but didn't do it. Tuesday was his last day in the canyon, and he decided to give it one final attempt, even though it was his second day on. And with zero expectations and with yours truly on belay, Dru sent the crew. It was amazing. He said he felt tired and had to battle, but he looked really solid and sent in good style. And he let out one of the loudest victory screams at the top that I've heard. And he was pretty much giggling the rest of the night. He was just overflowing with happiness, and I'm sure he had a big smile on his face on his flight back to Kentucky the following day. So congratulations, Dru. You fought super hard for that one, and it was well earned. And I hope your chocolate send Frosty was the tastiest yet. Thank you guys for listening to another episode. I appreciate you all. We'll see you next time.
Cause no